Chapter 987. Unparalleled Power. Flying in the air, Lin Feng's eyes were extremely bright. Such terrifying speed. This body is indeed different from before. Feeling the brand new strength, even his confidence was greatly boosted. I can pass. I can definitely pass. Even if the guard in front was a peak star domain level existence, his nemesis, the water serpent constellation's waterman, who specialized in speed. But that was all in the past. The current him was a complete star domain level warrior. Not only had his soul transformed, his body had transformed, even his strength had completely transformed. Truly strong. There were no more flaws. But no matter which side of the three extremes spring waterfall, the time limit has already reached the end. The possibility of passing is very small. Lin Feng's eyes flashed as he thought. With the rules of the three extremes spring waterfall, the completion time and efficiency basically decided everything. But his efficiency before was unsightly. It took close to 24 hours to complete. How could he pass? He was destined to fail. But to him, this was no longer important. The goal of entering the training ground to challenge has already been completed. Whether or not I can pass is not important. Lin Feng smiled faintly, his expression relaxed. To him, whether or not he could pass the three extreme spring waterfall was not important. There was a beginning and an end. He did not want to hastily end this challenge. No matter what the result was, he had to at least try his best to complete it. Eyes flashing with a dense battle intent, Lin Feng rushed forward, clenching his fists. Furthermore, he also wanted to fight against the so-called peak star domain level. A battle to see who was better. This was a very good touchstone. So, fast as a meteor, Lin Feng headed straight for the protector of the third region. The vertical distance was not far. It could even be said to be very close. This time, he had to give up on all the surrounding watermen because time did not allow for it. Furthermore, his water fate Astral was already full. What was the use of killing these low-level watermen to obtain water energy? Just pass. Hua! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. In front of him, a shining white figure appeared, looking like a demon. What an illusory feeling. So fast. Lin Feng had just blinked his eyes when he saw the existence that was almost a light shadow instantly disappear. The moment he discovered him discovered him at the same time. The air seemed to be bone-chilling. His killing intent was completely exposed. Here it comes. Lin Feng's eyes flashed slightly, and flames suddenly appeared in his hands. The speed of a newcomer was almost on par with his own. As expected of the final guardian of extreme speed, his strength was not to be underestimated. But I guess that's the only way. Lin Feng's expression was calm, and he didn't seem to mind. Misty cloud steps. His body rapidly changed, and his footsteps were extremely mysterious, bringing his speed to the extreme. Go all out? There was no need for that at the moment. Furthermore, the vast star eyes and starry sky eyes had limited soul power. Extreme speed is an extreme. If speed can restrain the enemy, then the enemy will be in a dilemma, and it will be very troublesome. But if speed can't restrain the enemy, then it will be troublesome. Then it will be himself. Lin Feng's figure seemed to have teleported, and with a few light steps, he created a large gap. His speed, after greatly increasing, was not inferior to the light figure in front of him. Moreover, with the assistance of misty cloud steps, it was like adding wings to a tiger. The gap was immediately revealed. When the white light figure couldn't gain any advantage in speed, it was destined to have only one ending. Flame-moving spear art, second style. Lin Feng's eyes were sharp, and with just one step, the surrounding domain was completely locked. Vast star eyes and starry sky eyes flashed, and along with the explosion of the spear intent, the amethyst spear condensed a strong, engulfing flame, completely enveloping the white light figure in front of him. He could even see that in the pair of intelligent eyes, there was a trace of fear and shock. The guard of the third level, the white light figure, was not stupid. The difference in strength was obvious. In a split-second Lin Feng's star power surged out. His control of the domain was originally better than the white light figure's. The white light figure was inclined towards speed, and whether it was in terms of attack or defense, there was a big gap between them. Even his strongest aspect was restrained, let alone other aspects. There was no suspense in losing. Extreme speed was the opposite of extreme. Bang! Flames lit up the sky. Lin Feng's amethyst spear, accompanied by a shrill roar, completely tore apart the white light figure's defense. The engulfing flame surged violently, swallowing everything. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. As the guard was killed, the third level was announced to have passed. The surroundings seemed to have become quiet in an instant, as if after a storm, there was no sound and no trace, returning to the primitive feeling. Lin Feng held the amethyst spear in his hand, and his vast star eyes and starry sky eyes shone brightly, still maintaining their perfect state. Very strong. Lin Feng smiled and clenched his fist. The current him was really strong. Before this, if he faced such a peak cosmic sector-level existence, he would probably lose within 3 moves. But now, he only needed 1 move to take his life. That was a peak cosmic sector-level existence. But in front of him now, he was as small as an ant. It was not that he was too weak, but that he too strong. Hua! The guard checkpoint in front finally opened. A bright golden door shone brightly, surging with a terrifying aura and energy. It was completely different from the previous light gates. The aura behind this light gate was calm and natural. It was a space of another dimension. He was very familiar with the feeling of space. The vast star eyes shone brightly, and he could clearly sense it. It seems I passed. Lin Feng thought. He frowned slightly, but he did not step forward. He felt that something was wrong. Strange. If I completed the challenge, shouldn't I be directly teleported? Why am I allowed to enter by myself? Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly, and he felt a little confused. There was a strange feeling. 3 extreme spring waterfall. Could it be that there is something else? If there is, what is it hiding? Lin Feng was hesitant, but he did not rush to take the final step. The 24-hour time limit was almost over, and there was no difference between 1 minute earlier and 1 minute later. Choice. Could it be that this is also a choice? Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he thought to himself, if I choose not to enter this final door, what else can I choose? Instantly, pung. His heart shook, and Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Yes, what other choice did he have? The answer was obvious. The other 2 extremes. I can totally return to the starting point of the 3 extreme spring waterfall and choose the other 2 extremes. The reason why this 4th grade waterfall is called the 3 extreme spring waterfall is because of the existence of the 3 extremes. If I only pass 1 checkpoint, won't it become the 1 extreme spring waterfall? Plus, with the time limit, each of the extremes is exactly the same 24-hour time limit, and it is not cumulative. There's more to it. Yes, that's it. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and his thoughts were clear. Immediately, he turned around and ran back without hesitation, and his figure disappeared. Continue. Ha! Once again, he entered the attack mode. Lin Feng jumped, and his eyes were burning. He did not hear the voice of the 24-hour time limit, and the corner of his mouth lifted slightly. Obviously, it was the same as when he left previously. In other words, there was not much time left. I should be able to make it. Lin Feng's heart trembled, and he did not stop for a moment. Instantly, he exploded with his strongest speed, shooting out like a light arrow. His speed was much faster than the first time he entered here. The reason why he did not choose the defense mode first was because he spent too much time in the defense mode. He was afraid that after killing the Guardian, he would turn back. There was not enough time, but there was still room for the attack mode. Soon, the 1st and 2nd checkpoints were completely passed. Under the pressure of the time limit, he charged straight to the 3rd checkpoint, the Valiant Peak Star Sector-Level Guardian. There was no obstruction because he had already wiped out all the remaining water people. Even if there were with his current speed, how could these ordinary water people catch up with him? They were not on the same level at all. At this moment, there was only one person in the ultimate attack that could make him attack. the guardian of the third checkpoint. However, would his strength be stronger than the guardian of the attack mode? In the water curtain cave, another 3 days and 3 nights passed. It tugged at everyone's heartbeat, causing it to speed up. Every disciple of the water curtain cave stared at the holy crystal high up in the sky. They were waiting for the most exciting moment to arrive. In an instant, accompanied by a scream, the originally noisy water curtain cave suddenly became incomparably quiet. Everyone opened their eyes wide and stared at the holy crystal. Even Shui Linglong and Fong Ning's eyes were shining brightly. At this moment, the 4th grade spring waterfall holy crystal that had been shining for 3 days and 3 nights. It was extinguished. Finally, it was extinguished. This meant that the challenge of the 4th grade spring waterfall was over. Almost at the same time, everyone's gaze fell on the teleportation formation of the Holy Land. They gulped down their saliva and their heartbeats sped up. They were extremely curious. Who was the martial artist who created this miracle? But time passed by minute. It was like the passing of years. It was incomparably long, but the teleportation formation of the Holy Land still did not change at all. Could they wait? Of course they could not. Because at this moment, a holy crystal that had never lit up before shone brightly like a star. It was so bright that it almost covered everything. The entire hall fell into complete silence. Everyone stared at the strange scene in front of them with their mouths agape. It was as if they were suffocating. That was the 3rd grade spring waterfall. The 7th day of the new year passed so quickly. Chapter 988. Wah! Light flashed. In the 3 extreme spring waterfall, Lin Feng held the purple crystal spear and stood calmly. After the extreme attack, the last guardian of the extreme defense was also killed directly. It's over. Lin Feng heaved a sigh of relief and smiled. Without any suspense, the weakest of the 3 extremes was the extreme defense. Previously, when his strength had not reached the star domain level, he was able to fight evenly with the guardian, the black armored giant. The only thing he lacked was a strong enough attack power. However, right now, everything was happening naturally. The guardian's light door did not appear again. In an instant, Lin Feng's head exploded, as if he was sucked into a whirlpool. 3 extreme spring waterfall challenge passed perfectly. Please choose your own reward. As the voice sounded, Lin Feng regained his consciousness and his eyes lit up. His vision was clear. It was a familiar independent space. Previously, he had chosen the golden treasure here. But he had passed again. Another perfect pass. Lin Feng smiled. He did not expect that he would hit the jackpot again. He thought that he would definitely lose this challenge. But because his strength had increased to the star domain level, he had passed it smoothly. If not, he would not have been able to defeat the guardian of the extreme speed 2nd checkpoint, not to mention the 3 peak star domain level powerhouses from the Water Snake constellation. The difference was not just a little big. Reward. Lin Feng muttered, his eyes flashing. Gazing ahead, there were a total of 10 different existences floating in the air in an orderly fashion. Any one of them was worth more than the 10 rewards of the Clear Heart Waterfall combined. Xiantian treasures. The weakest was an Earth rank existence. The terrifying aura made people's hearts boil. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. He could not help but feel his heart beat faster. Such a strong and terrifying power. If he could not control it, even it would backfire on him. The shiny fruits were born from the creation of heaven and earth. The energy they contained was not something normal star fruits could compare to. It was a special life form, an independent existence. Not only to alchemists, but to any martial artist, it was a priceless treasure. But in a split second, Lin Feng was stunned. His eyes widened as he stared at the most inconspicuous jade on the far right. In front of this piece of jade, the other 9 rewards were like dowry, and they paled in comparison. Although its aura was the plainest and most inconspicuous, this jade contained a terrifying power that not even star sector level or saint level existences could control. Star Origin Stone. Heavens, is this really a Star Origin Stone? Lin Feng stretched out his hand in disbelief. Without any hesitation, Xiao Chun took the Astral Origin Stone. Lin Feng's heart trembled violently, and his eyes lit up. It was familiar, yet strange. Familiarity was because he had once possessed it, but it was unfamiliar because he had never truly touched it before. This is what Duo said. It is the most precious and rare cosmic energy, the Astral Origin Stone. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. It contained powerful astral origin energy. According to Duo, the amount of astral origin stones in a planet was relatively small, but there was one in front of him. Although it was not big, the astral origin energy it contained was as abundant as a lake. How rare it was! This was absolutely worthy of being called the chief treasure among the 10 rewards. Even if the other 9 rewards were added together, they would not be comparable to this small piece of Astral Origin Stone. It was extremely precious. Oh, this little guy actually knows about Astral Origin Stones. I underestimated him. In the Water Curtain Cave, under a huge waterfall, a white-haired old man with a withered face slowly opened his eyes. That pair of wise eyes seemed to be able to see through everything in the world. The waterfall flowed down rapidly, but the white-haired old man sat steadily like Mount Tai, completely blending into the environment. There was not even a splash on his body. It was as if he was the embodiment of water, representing the existence of water. Fong Ning's master, the owner of the Water Curtain Cave, Elder Tianji. However, Elder Tianji frowned slightly, and a sharp light flashed in his eyes. In an instant, his right hand was raised in the air, and his thumb and middle finger were clenched tightly. He slowly shook his head. This little guy's fate as an emperor is indeed full of misfortune. His path is bumpy, and there are many tribulations. He just broke through to the star sector level, and not long after, another great tribulation will descend, and it is a rather troublesome chain of tribulations. Elder Tianji helplessly closed his eyes, and his hands hung down. Although he wanted to help Lin Feng, he did not have the strength to do so. An emperor was destined to be an emperor, and it was destined to be rugged and difficult. It was destined to open up new territory with its own 2 hands. If he helped Lin Feng, it would be equivalent to going against the heavens. It would be doing bad things with good intentions, and it would increase Lin Feng's tribulations. Once the tribulations were added, it would be even more dangerous for Lin Feng. He can only rely on himself. Elder Tianji opened his eyes and sighed softly. In his heart, there was both anticipation and hesitation. Others did not know, but he knew very well. Once Lin Feng, who had the emperor's fate, reached the saint level, it would cause a huge change in the Douling world, and all the balance would be broken. In the battle between 2 emperors, one would definitely die. It was like how a mountain could not contain 2 tigers, and a world could not contain 2 emperors. This is an opportunity for mankind, but at the same time, it is a disaster for mankind. But rather than living like this, it is better to fight vigorously, even if the chances are so slim. In the Water Curtain Cave, shocked voices sounded one after another. As the Holy Land crystal of the 3rd grade spring lit up, the hall was in an uproar. How many years had it been since a disciple of the Water Curtain Cave entered the 3rd grade spring? Countless. At this moment, in the Water Curtain Cave, other than Elder Tianji, no one else had entered the 3rd grade spring, not even once. It was too difficult. In the Water Curtain Cave, there was a legend: once one entered the 4th grade spring, one would become a saint at the very least. And after entering the 3rd grade spring, one would definitely become a saint king. How difficult was it to become a saint? Becoming a saint king was even more difficult. It was the pinnacle of the Douling world, possessing the strongest power. It was only a step away from breaking through the void and becoming a starry sky expert. Now, another legend was born. He actually passed the 4th grade spring. A pair of bright eyes, as elegant and refined as a lotus. Shui Yumei stood indifferently, looking at the Holy Land crystal with a hint of surprise. But compared to the other excited disciples, her mood was much calmer. After all, she was the eldest senior sister, experienced and knowledgeable. Of course, it was already quite incredible. What is his name? Shui Yomei's figure flashed and appeared in front of Shui Linglong. Shui Linglong could not help but be startled. Looking at Shui Yomei, they looked at each other and said softly, "He is Lin Feng, eldest senior sister." Lin Feng. Shui Yomei's beautiful eyes flickered as she whispered his name. Turning back, she glanced at the Holy Land crystal again and left without saying anything. Shui Linglong and Fong Ning looked at each other, and Shui Linglong said in surprise, "I have never seen eldest senior sister care so much about someone." Fong Ning could not help but laugh. "That is not caring, that is hostility." Ah! Shui Linglong was shocked. "It can't be, right? It can't be more obvious." Fong Ning smiled indifferently, looking at the direction Shui Yumei left. He was too familiar with that gaze. Once upon a time, the three of them had the same gaze. It was not true hostility, but a kind of competitive hostility. It was a kind of competition, a kind of unwillingness to admit defeat. They were all geniuses who would admit that they were worse than others. Shui Yomei's talent was outstanding, unmatched in the water curtain cave. And now, however, Lin Feng had suddenly appeared, and he was even stronger than her. How could it not attract her attention? 100 Falls, ancient ruins. Phew. Lin Feng sighed and shook his head helplessly. Isn't this third-grade waterfall a little too terrifying? Such a strong water snake constellation. Lin Feng was still in shock when he recalled the crushing defeat he had just suffered. He did not have any room to fight back. Although he lasted for 4 hours, he was still forced into a desperate situation by a group of peak star domain level existences. No matter how strong his misty cloud steps was, no matter how much the flame of rebirth was, the difference in strength was still there and could not be changed. There is always a higher mountain. He was not a match at all. The difficulty increased by more than 10 times. I'm afraid it is more than 100 times. To pass this third-grade spring, even if one's strength increases to peak star domain level, it is harder than ascending to the heavens. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He had only seen a little, and it had already attracted a disaster. If he really made it to the end, he might even attract a saint-level existence. The difficulty was too high. I understand. Lin Feng nodded. The challenge of Star Lord level and Star Domain level is not the same, so I can pass the 4th grade spring, but the difficulty of the 3rd grade spring is more than 100 times. Just the 3rd grade spring is already so difficult, there is still the 2nd grade. What about the 1st grade? Lin Feng's heart throbbed. He felt a deep shock. The joy of breaking through to Star Domain level instantly disappeared. He was still far from being truly strong. Even if it was the Saint level, above it was the Saint King level. Above the Saint King level, there was still the Star Domain level. The Star Domain level was just the beginning. But Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He took out the Star Origin Stone. This time, he had a bountiful harvest. Just 1 Star Origin Stone. Maybe it was not enough to restart the Nether ship and revive many people. But this was an opportunity, a signal. It was crucial. There is a Star Origin Stone in the 100 Falls. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, hope rising. He could not find a way to save his father, just like how he could not light up the other fated star plates. But the time was not right. Now, the opportunity was right in front of him. As long as I'm strong enough, next year or the year after, I can challenge again and get more Star Origin Stones. 10 years, 100 years if I can get enough Star Origin Stones. The Nether ship can be restarted, Toto can be revived, and at that time, saving my father will be a piece of cake. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Clenching his fists, Lin Feng's eyes flashed. In front of him, a path gradually lit up. On the last day of the new year, I wish everyone a good spring and a smooth 2014. Chapter 989. It's finally over. Phew, my heart is about to jump out. This senior brother is too scary. Is he still human? Inside the water curtain cave, everyone was talking and sighing again and again. If the second-class Holy Land crystal lit up again, they would have fainted from shock. Fortunately, it stopped at the third-class Holy Land. Even so, it was already a terrifying result. Every water curtain cave disciple's eyes were filled with admiration and envy, but more than that, there was respect. To be able to enter the third-class Holy Land, he would definitely be a holy king in the future. Such strength was definitely unattainable. However, everyone stretched their necks and waited for a long time, but there was still no sign of him. It can't be. Why didn't he come out for so long? Yeah, there's only one teleportation array back to the water curtain cave. Strange, where is he? Everyone was whispering to each other. They had waited for so long just to see his face, so they were naturally anxious. Everyone's eyes were filled with anticipation. Who didn't want to see this legendary person who created miracles and satisfy their curiosity that had been hanging for 3 days and 3 nights? But sometimes it was just like that. Things didn't go as planned. Let's go, it's time to cultivate. Fong Ning looked at Shui Linglong and nodded. Yeah, the gap is getting bigger and bigger. Shui Linglong smiled. Her beautiful eyes were filled with respect and helplessness. He's a monster. It hurts my pride to compare with him. Fong Ning shrugged and smiled. But there are many benefits. At least I have a goal to chase after, and a goal that will always be stronger than me. Thinking about it, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Shui Linglong covered her mouth and chuckled. Senior brother Fong, you're really open-minded. Fong Ning smiled. What else can I do? Master said that the most important thing for a person is not to compare with others, but to compare with himself. Even if we improve a little every day, over time, we'll see results. Maybe our cultivation speed is slower than Lin Feng, but what does it matter? As long as we persevere, we can also become holy kings in the future, or even surpass holy kings and reach holy kings like Master. Fong Ning's eyes were burning with confidence. Fong Ning had never doubted his own talent. Maybe he wasn't as good as Lin Feng, but so what? There was always a taller mountain. Yes, I understand. Shui Linglong nodded and smiled sweetly. They looked at each other and smiled. Then they left. However, this caused the waiting crowd to shout out curiously. Senior brother Fong, senior sister Linglong, are you not going to wait? That's right. Senior brother Fong, senior sister Linglong. Don't you want to know this senior brother's identity? We already knew who he was. Shui Linglong stopped and turned around. In an instant, an uproar broke out. Everyone's gazes converged on him. They were incomparably shocked. Fong Ning looked at Shui Linglong helplessly. The latter stuck out her tongue playfully, but Fong Ning couldn't do anything about it. Now that Shui Linglong had created such a big mess, she naturally could not just walk away. With so many pairs of eyes staring at her, she had to explain herself. Fong Ning looked around. Although he felt helpless, he said slowly, Everyone, let's go back. Don't wait anymore. He won't come out because he is not a disciple of the water curtain cave. As soon as his voice fell, cries of shock rang out from all directions. Everyone widened their eyes and looked at Fong Ning in disbelief. I can't reveal his identity, but what I can tell everyone is that his age is not even as old as mine. Fong Ning's words hit the nail on the head. Everyone swallowed their saliva. It can't be. The mysterious powerhouse who created a miracle and entered the third-grade spring waterfall was younger than senior brother Fong? Is this for real? Isn't he much younger than most of them? Fong Ning's eyes flashed. Since he had already brought out this topic, he naturally had to make the best use of everything to stimulate these frogs in a well, junior brothers and sisters. Do you know that he is not a water snake constellation? Fong Ning looked around and said slowly. He entered the sacred ground to challenge, and the difficulty of all the waterfalls doubled. Moreover, the challenge environment was far from our water snake constellation. But he still created a miracle and entered the third-grade spring waterfall. What about you? Fong Ning looked at his junior brothers and junior sisters, who were blushing and did not say anything else after he uttered those words. Since he had achieved his goal, any more words would be superfluous. He nodded at Shui Linglong and left. As a senior brother, it was his duty to help his junior brothers and sisters. 100 Waterfall Ancient Ruins. The challenge was completely over. Lin Feng did not use the Sacred Grounds teleportation array because there was no need to. Water Curtain Cave was a paradise, but it was only suitable for water snake constellation martial artists to cultivate. Moreover, Yu Miao had already repaired it, so there was no need to return. Right now, he did not even need to make a wish to return to Sky Martial Continent. Just by using Yu Miao's spatial door, he could easily return. His strength had increased to star domain level, and his spirit could now remember 3 spatial locations. One was Thousand Snake Cave, one was Sky Martial Continent, and the other, he could set it up as he wished. However, Lin Feng did not leave, because in front of him, there was a lady who looked like a lotus floating in front of him. You are. Lin Feng's eyes flashed as he stared in front of him. Her beautiful face was not inferior to Yuma's at all. Instead, it added a mature charm. Floating in the air like a lotus flower, the lady's body was slender like a stream, and her beautiful eyes were staring at him. Shui Yume, you are Lin Feng? Shui Yume finally spoke. You are. Lin Feng was slightly surprised. He had never seen this lady before, but since she could call out his name, she obviously came prepared. You don't need to know who I am. Shui Yume said faintly, her expression calm. Master asked me to tell you that in half a year, you will face a catastrophe. Staring at Lin Feng, Shui Yume's beautiful eyes moved slightly. That's all I want to say, you're on your own. After that, she left like the wind. She came without a shadow, left without a trace, and her whereabouts were ethereal. However, Lin Feng was greatly shocked. In half a year, he would face a catastrophe. Master, Fang Ning once mentioned that all the disciples of the Water Curtain Cave only have one master. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. He had seen this lady's master before, so it should be Fang Ning's master. What he said would not be without reason. Why did you come to inform me? Obviously, it's because my current strength is not enough to deal with this catastrophe. Lin Feng nodded. This was not difficult to estimate. Words did not need to be said too clearly. In half a year, my catastrophe, what will it be? Pursing his lips, Lin Feng's mind was filled with thoughts, and he felt a deep sense of fear. But this was not fear. For so many years, what kind of catastrophe had he not faced? With his current strength, he could not pass it, but it did not mean that he could not pass it in half a year. There was still half a year's time, and he was fully capable of raising his strength to another level. Much stronger than now. With his strongest peak strength, he would face this catastrophe. Interesting. Lin Feng smiled and clenched his fists. The jade pendant in his left ear swayed gently, and a white light flashed, and a spatial door opened. Lin Feng immediately entered. In the Water Curtain Cave. Master, disciple has already informed him. Shui Yume cupped her hands. Well done. Tianji Elder replied faintly. His voice was weak, and his face was pale. Master, you. Shui Yume immediately raised her head and looked at Tianji Elder, knowing what had happened. Shui Yume was slightly worried. Are you all right, Master? Revealing the secrets of the heavens would result in a small punishment. The greater the secrets of the heavens leaked, the heavier the punishment. To be able to make Tianji Elder, a sage king, suffer such a punishment, the secrets of the heavens that were leaked, one could imagine. I'm fine, Tianji Elder said faintly. I have endured injuries 10,000 times worse than this. This is just a mosquito scratching an itch. Shui Yume stared at Tianji Elder and said slowly, Disciple does not understand, Master. You don't need to understand. Tianji Elder shook his head. Shui Yume frowned and opened her mouth to ask, but she stopped, because she knew that if her master did not want to say it, no one could force him, including her. Master, what should disciple do? Shui Yume asked softly. Let nature take its course. Tianji Elder waved his hand. Leave, Yume, and cultivate well. I have high hopes for you and Fang Ning. Don't disappoint me. Yes, Master. Shui Yume opened her red lips and left. Since she couldn't ask why, there was no need to ask. What she needed to do was to continue cultivating and maintain this state, until the day that Master spoke of arrived. Fate is born. Fate is destroyed. Tingy Elder's eyes blurred as he muttered softly. Ling Long is like that. Yu Mei is also like that. Both cannot escape fate. Perhaps the heavens left me this set of old bones to live on. Isn't this also the word fate? Cough. Tingy Elder's face was filled with fatigue as he coughed a few times. This is all I can help you with. As for the road ahead, it's still up to you, whether you can survive the calamity and become the human sovereign. His voice was calm and filled with hope. Tingy Elder slowly closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The weather changed. As Lin Feng's strength increased, everything seemed to be gradually taking shape. It was like a game, a chessboard. The pieces slowly increased, and the situation became chaotic. Lin Feng didn't know, Shui Yumei didn't know, and even Tingy Elder himself didn't know. How could mortals guess the might of the heavens? As time passed, it was like a big clock. The needle was slowly moving. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Lin Feng left 100 Falls and returned to Sky Marshall Continent. And a storm and calamity was like a storm. Dark clouds covered the sky, and it was slowly taking shape. Born of fate. So fast. The new year is over in the blink of an eye. After 7 days of visiting relatives, today is the last day, and I thought I could have a good rest, but a guest came to my house, huh? Fortunately, I made it in time to write. Chapter 990. After a year, Lin Feng once again returned to the Sky Marshall Continent. Although it was small, although it was just a tiny existence in the boundless ocean, but it was very warm here. It has the warmth of home. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. He was born in the Lin clan, the land of the 9 provinces. But he did not have the slightest sense of belonging to the Douling world. Since he could remember, he had always lived in the Sky Marshall Continent, in the Lin family village. Now that he thought about it, he was living in a dilapidated cave. It was very warm, although it was bitter, it was happy. But now, the responsibility is great. Lin Feng said softly. The current him was already the holy king of the Sky Marshall Continent, shouldering the safety of hundreds of millions of people. First, there was the Heavenly Dogs Rebellion. Then there was the Thousand Snake Caves havoc. The Sky Marshall Continent had never been peaceful for a while. Before he established the Kingdom of Meru, there were many civilizations that existed and were destroyed, leaving behind many energy machines and various ancient ruins. With his current strength, there were still 4 great danger lands that he had yet to enter. The Sky Marshall Continent has secrets. Lin Feng's eyes brightened. I have the same feeling, brother. Lin Yin nodded in agreement. Ever since you told me about the Douling world. Lin Feng nodded. Indeed, the 9 provinces was a prosperous land, but there were no 4 great danger lands. Although the Sky Marshall Continent was a continent, its area was only the size of the Lin clan's Qianluo district. Once or twice, it could be said to be a coincidence. But with so many things happening, it's impossible to pretend that nothing happened. Lin Feng's expression was solemn and said slowly, according to my estimation, the calamity in half a year's time might not be related to me. It's very likely it's related to the Sky Marshall Continent. Lin Feng was very clear that he was now connected to the Sky Marshall Continent. The calamity might not be directed at him. If it was directed at the Sky Marshall Continent, it would be the same as descending on him. Just like the little celestial dog, he couldn't allow the Marshall Heaven Continent to be destroyed. This was a responsibility. Are you serious, brother? Lin Yun frowned. I'm not sure. The predecessor of the 100 Falls didn't say it clearly, but no matter what, Lin Feng's eyes were bright, and his expression was solemn. Since the predecessor sent a disciple to inform me, it must be something important. He wouldn't say it without thinking. He did not doubt Feng Ning's master. With his strength, what he said was definitely more than 90% true. If he said that there would be a calamity in half a year, then there would definitely be one. Moreover, it was most likely not ordinary. Then, brother, what are your plans? Lin Yin frowned slightly, also feeling a little worried. Cultivate. Lin Feng replied indifferently without the slightest hesitation. You have to cultivate, and you have to make considerable progress in half a year. Only then will you have enough strength to face the calamity in half a year, regardless of whether it's directed at me or the Sky Martial Continent. Increasing your own strength to face the calamity is the most correct and positive thing to do. Brother is right. Lin Yun nodded. He had always listened to his brother's words. Moreover, Lin Feng's words were reasonable. Lin Yun paused slightly and said seriously, "Then let's split up, brother. I will send enough people to explore the secrets of the Sky Martial Continent and see if there's a chance to solve the calamity in advance. Although the hope is small, it's better than not trying." "All right." Lin Feng smiled and nodded. Indeed, Yun's words were comprehensive. Sometimes the so-called calamity could really be solved in advance. For example, during the first rebellion of the little celestial dog, if he could kill the little celestial dog before it matured, how could there be such a terrifying turmoil? However, it all depended on luck. "All right, Yun, what are you going to do with the Star Mang pills?" Lin Feng asked casually. This time, he had brought over tens of thousands of Star Mang pills, and it was sufficient. There were top-grade Star Mang pills, high-grade Star Mang pills, middle-grade Star Mang pills, and low-grade Star Mang pills. It could be said that the stock of the biggest vermilion bird continent's Luo Merchant Association was all used up. It cost a huge sum of money. "I have a suggestion, brother." Lin Yun's eyes lit up. "Tell me." Lin Feng was curious. "Brother, the elite policy that you had planned previously was not bad, but..." Lin Yun looked at Lin Feng and said seriously, "I feel that this is not the best way to use the Star Mang pills. Choosing the most talented martial artists in the Sky Martial Continent to consume the Star Mang pills, the short-term effects would be good, but what would happen after that? I know that brother is not lacking in money, but I hope that the Kingdom of Meru can rely on themselves. Even if they don't have us in the future, they can have a stable cycle, with strong martial artists emerging and not always under brother's wings." Lin Feng nodded and smiled. "That's right, continue." Hearing that Lin Feng did not object, Lin Yun smiled and became more confident. "It's like this, brother. I plan to keep a part of the elite policy. Those top-grade Star Mang pills will be left for the martial artists with the best talent. But I plan to use all the high-grade, middle-grade, and low-grade Star Mang pills together." "Together?" Lin Feng looked at Lin Yun, and his eyes lit up. "You mean to let all the martial artists in the Kingdom of Meru use it?" Lin Yun shook his head and said seriously, "It's for all the ordinary people, brother." Lin Feng's eyes lit up, as if he was deep in thought. Lin Yun explained, "Dragons give birth to dragons. Phoenixes give birth to phoenixes. The children of strong martial artists will have better talent than ordinary people. I've read many books, and this is the bloodline mentioned in the books. Bloodlines should be able to be passed down, just like the foundation mentioned when practicing martial arts. The more solid the foundation, the higher the future achievements." Lin Yun said confidently. Seeing that Lin Feng was hesitant and did not speak, he felt a bit nervous. "What do you think, brother?" Lin Yun's voice weakened a bit. This was just his wishful thinking, and he was not sure. After all, there was a difference between plans and reality. "Very good, Yun." Lin Feng's eyes flashed, and he smiled slightly. His younger brother was indeed powerful, and he did not think so far ahead. His thinking stopped at the martial artist level, and he agreed with his sentence, "Those below the saint level are all ants." But his younger brother stood in the position of king and looked at the Kingdom of Meru, and looked at the future of the Kingdom of Meru. In terms of governance, he was not as good as him. "Really, brother, you think it's possible too?" Lin Yun was pleasantly surprised. In terms of experience, he knew that he was still far from his elder brother, and to be able to get his elder brother's affirmation, he felt at ease. "It should be no problem." Lin Feng smiled. "But implementing it is not something that can be done in 10 or 100 years. Although the bloodline will be passed down, it is still a proportion, a degree, and it will be diluted. Two strong martial artists may not necessarily give birth to a child with superior talent, and there are too many uncertainties, but the bloodline does exist. The path is right to greatly improve the physique of ordinary people, and to the Kingdom of Meru, There are only benefits and no disadvantages. But this is a big project, and we need to improve the bloodline step by step. Just 1 or 2 generations is not enough. But I believe that as long as we persevere with the passage of time, the people of Sky Marshall Continent will have better talent and foundation. Lin Feng smiled and patted Lin Yun's shoulder. Go ahead and do it. Yun, you don't have to worry about the resources. Just tell me if you need anything. This time, other than the Starmang pills, I also brought a lot of energy machines and enough star crystals. You are right. The more solid the foundation, the higher the achievements in the future. Lin Feng's eyes were burning, and his voice was firm. If he wanted to change, he had to change from the most basic aspects. With the support of the cultivation methods of the 9 provinces, slowly, the people of the Kingdom of Meru would get closer and closer to the 9 provinces. Although there was a limit to a person's talent and bloodline, the people of the Kingdom of Meru were far weaker than the standards of the 9 provinces. Among them, there was still a large gap that could be improved. The change of the foundation was more important than anything else. Okay, brother. Lin Yun smiled and nodded. I know what to do. Speaking of which, brother, these diluted Starmang pills have endless uses. Not only can Shui absorb them perfectly, but even Mother's weak body can slowly recover and increase her strength. Lin Yun blinked and smiled. Brother, you don't know, but Mother officially became a martial artist yesterday. Lin Feng smiled. Thinking back to the past, he had gone through countless difficulties to become a martial artist. But now, even his mother, who had a weak body and was unable to cultivate at her age, could easily improve her strength. It had to be said that most of the time, things that seemed impossible in the present might not necessarily be difficult in the future. This is just the beginning, Yun. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. As long as the foundation is stable and the cells have enough vitality, Mother's body will get better and better. Then, she will absorb more and more. It will form a stable cycle, just like Shui. Lin Feng smiled and said. Thinking about Shui-er's excitement over the past few days, he felt happy. In just a few days, Shui had broken through again and again. Her current strength in Tianwu continent was equivalent to Emperor Wu's level, and she was only a step away from becoming a titled martial god. Perhaps this kind of force-feeding method of improvement would only bring harm to a true martial artist. But for his mother and Shui, who only wanted to strengthen their body and extend their lifespan to maintain their youth, it was the best. Haha, speaking of which, this little girl even went around looking for people to challenge. Lin Yun laughed. Really? Lin Feng did not know whether to laugh or cry. It's true, but in the end, she was beaten down by a punch. Haha. 3 days later, after a short rest and settling some matters, Lin Feng set off again. Although he was reluctant, he had no other choice. He had to do his best to increase his strength. For the sake of half a year later, calamity. I finally had a good day's rest. Tomorrow's 3 chapters. The Chinese New Year is tiring. The updates are a little irregular because Xiao Xiao visits her family and friends every day. It's lucky that she can keep up with the updates, huh? Chapter 991. Whoosh. Lin Feng returned to the Thousand Snake Cave again. There were all kinds of energy machines and ordinary cultivation places in the Sky Marshall Continent. Shirluo County had everything, and it had much richer spirit chi. If he wanted to cultivate, he naturally wouldn't cultivate in the Sky Marshall Continent. However, the Sky Marshall Continent had a transcendent existence that Shirluo County didn't have. The 4 Forbidden Lands. The first absolute, the 100 Falls ancient ruins, had already proved its mystery. The second absolute, the Thousand Snake Cave, had only explored a small part of it. Just like the 100 Falls ancient ruins back then, he only thought it was a wish existence. Who would have thought that there was such a powerful force as the Water Curtain Cave behind it? Who would have thought that there were so many rare treasures in the 100 Falls ancient ruins, and there was also an unparalleled challenge place? It was quite magical. The Thousand Snake Cave was naturally not inferior. Last year, I came here only to eliminate the threat of the strange snakes, but this time is different. Lin Feng's eyes were bright. The teleportation channel from the Thousand Snake Cave to the Sky Martial Continent had been temporarily closed after the Illusion Eye Battle Snake clone was defeated by him. If he wanted to open it again, it would obviously take more than 1 or 2,000 years. He entered again this time to continue exploring the depths of the Thousand Snake Cave. After all, his strength had greatly improved. Secondly, these strange snake gallbladders are unique. Now that my body has greatly improved and my tolerance has also increased a lot, I can completely strengthen it again. Lin Feng smiled faintly, and his eyes flashed. Even if he cultivated in the time inscription formation for half a year, how much could his strength improve? The star power he had stored when he was at the peak of the Star Lord level had been exhausted when he broke through to the 4th level of the Star Realm. Most importantly, if he wanted to break through to the 5th level of the Star Realm, his star cultivation levels were not enough. If he followed the normal path, his strength would increase by about 50% in half a year, which was probably not bad. However, entering the Thousand Snake Cave undoubtedly had many more variables. At the very least, the strength of his body would definitely reach the limit that he could bear now. This was very important. As for the other 2 forbidden lands that had not been explored, the 10,000 Bone Cave and the Luoshang Purgatory, he didn't have enough strength to enter. Especially the Luoshang Purgatory, the first of the 4 forbidden lands that even the border was difficult to step into. Even if his strength had greatly improved, he still felt a chill down his spine. One could only take one step at a time. In cultivation, one must erase their shortcomings. But in terms of combat strength, we should prioritize improving our strengths to defeat our enemies. Putting everything else aside, with my current physical strength, after absorbing enough snake gall, my combat strength will increase by several times. It shouldn't be a problem. Lin Feng smiled calmly, full of confidence. With a flash of light, he came out of the spatial gate. Nothing had changed in front of him. He had set up this spatial door in his stone house in Battle Snake Town. In reality, when he killed the Battle Serpent envoy of the Illusionary Eye Battle Serpent and obtained the Battle Serpent Crystal of the Illusionary Eye Battle Serpent Hall, he already possessed 2 properties in the Battle Serpent Hall. However, he was already used to living in the first stone house. Now that he had returned, he felt a warm and familiar feeling, although it was still cold and cheerless. However, wasn't cultivation just like that? I wonder how Little Sword's cultivation has been over the past year. Lin Feng thought for a while, then took out the Battle Snake Crystal. He injected a bit of astral power into it, and immediately sensed the mark of the small sword. This was Battle Snake Town's unique method of communication. It was telepathy. However, there was no response. Little Sword is not in Battle Snake Town. He should be cultivating in the Battle Serpent Hall. Lin Feng thought softly and kept the Battle Snake Crystal. Once a warrior entered the Battle Serpent Hall to cultivate, his aura and energy would be covered by the Battle Serpent Hall, making it impossible to communicate with him. This was not surprising. It was normal for a Battle Serpent envoy to cultivate in the Battle Serpent Hall. Half a year. Lin Feng's eyes brightened. It's very short. I have to seize every minute. First, I will start from shallow to the deep. I will start from the first palace. The Thousand Snake Acupoint was divided into 3 levels. The first level had a total of 900 Battle Serpent Halls. The weakest Battle Serpent was 1 star, while the strongest was 3 stars. Every 100 Battle Serpent Halls was a threshold. One could enter Battle Snake Town through the back. Back then, Lin Feng had entered the 401st to 500th Battle Serpent Halls. The one that opened the passage to Sky Martial Continent was the 401st Illusionary Eye Battle Serpent Hall. At this moment, in the first Battle Serpent Hall, the aura is clearly much weaker. Lin Feng stepped into the hall. His eyes lit up. Clenching his fists, Lin Feng smiled faintly. As he stepped into the Star Sector level, everything felt different. Previously, when he entered the Battle Serpent Hall, he felt a pressure and restriction. That was the power of the Battle Serpent avatar in the hall. This was the area under its control. But now, he had already controlled the existence of a domain. Although the avatar of Ares could control this domain, it did not include him. This was because he was an independent existence. The reason why a star sector level was called a star sector level was because of the word domain. It was very important to establish one's own domain. It was necessary to step into the saint level. Taking a step forward, Lin Feng's expression was calm. Danger? What was there to be afraid of? Back then, when he was only a peak Star Lord, he was able to enter the 401st to 500th Battle Serpent Halls. One had to know that those were 2-star Battle Serpents, and the 1st to 300th Battle Serpent Halls were only 1-star Battle Serpents. The difference of 1 star was huge. The most important thing was he was no longer the same as before. Soon, he entered the Battle Serpent Hall. The huge hall was filled with an ancient aura. Stone statues could be seen everywhere. They were strange snakes, pythons, dragons, and even dragons. They all looked different, but clearly they had evolved from the same type. On the beam was a huge snake with bronze skin. It was extraordinary. It was the guardian of the 1st Battle Serpent Hall. Pa! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. In an instant, an intense white light flashed from the 7-colored staff, and 100 poison-colored python appeared. Its huge body was filled with a domineering aura. The patterns on the python's body were dense and rapid. The more patterns there were, the more complex and powerful the poison was. The 100 poison-colored python that was only a level 3-star sector level back then was now a level 4-star sector level existence. Nurture. After absorbing the snake gall, the 100 poison-colored python can evolve. Its greatest benefit isn't its poison, but its immortality. Lin Feng's eyes glowed. Although the 100 poison-colored python's strength was limited by the 7-colored staff and could not cultivate normally like Hong Ling, it had a chance to break through to the saint level in the future. The 100 poison-colored python's limit was peak star sector level, but there were pros and cons. The 100 poison-colored python was not a demon beast now. Instead, it was more like a weapon. Unless the 7-colored staff was destroyed, the 100 poison-colored python would not die. It could revive infinitely through the 7-colored staff. What it needed was, it only needed energy. That day, when he went to the Battle Serpent Hall, he fed the 100 poison-colored python many snake galls. Hence, its strength increased quite a bit. Now it was time to nurture it again. The snake gall of the strange python has very little energy. It's almost useless to me, but it's quite useful to the 100 poison-colored python. As for the snake galls of the strange dragons, I can completely absorb them to strengthen my body. This way, there won't be a conflict of energy due to eating too many snake galls of the same species, and I can use the snake galls to the limit, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Lin Feng's eyes glistened, and he smiled calmly. Perhaps the snake gall of the 1-star battle snake, even if it was of the highest level, wouldn't have much effect on him. However, no matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat. Besides, in the Battle Serpent Hall in the 1,000-snake cave, there were so many of them. Hiss! Hiss! The flames flared. Lin Feng stood in the middle calmly and attacked frantically with the flames of rebirth. Unlike the flames of devouring, the inexhaustible flames of rebirth was most suitable for prolonged battles. The flames of rebirth was also a 3rd-grade star technique that was only 1 level lower than the flames of devouring. With the strength of the star sector level, the power was even greater than the flames of devouring a year ago. Wherever the flames passed, they were invincible. The strange snakes, pythons, and flood dragons turned into snake galls before turning into stone sculptures. The 7-colored staff glowed, and the 100 poison-colored python was retracted after absorbing the snake galls. There was no need to stay any longer, lest they get implicated, because boom, boom, the Battle Serpent Hall shook violently. A majestic aura spread. It was the high and mighty Battle Serpent Avatar, the guardian of the palace. Its bronze skin glowed, and its dull eyes lit up. A terrifying aura immediately spread and enveloped the entire area. Once all the stone sculptures were killed, the Battle Serpent Avatar would be resurrected. Lin Feng didn't run away. Instead, he stood at his original spot with a calm expression. His eyes were shining brightly like the stars in the sky. "I've been waiting for you." Lin Feng smiled calmly. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Lin Feng shuttled through the narrow space like a bolt of lightning. His eyes lit up, and he could sense space and time clearly. Using strange and wonderful footwork, Lin Feng shuttled through the attacks of the bronze serpent and dodged them. The enraged roar shook the entire battle serpent hall, but the bronze serpent avatar was only fierce on the outside and weak on the inside. It couldn't attack Lin Feng at all. In fact, with Lin Feng's current strength, it was completely possible for him to kill the one-star battle serpent avatar, even without bloodshed. But what was the point? Killing it is even more boring than killing those stone sculptures. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. Other than sealing the open passage, he wouldn't get any rewards for killing the battle serpent avatar. It was purely a waste of effort. However, it was different. Lin Feng looked to the side and smiled calmly. At this moment, Hong Ling was greedily absorbing the bronze serpent's energy. They were from the same source and the same source of energy. Back then, Hong Ling could absorb the illusionary eye battle serpent's energy. Naturally, he could absorb the energy of other battle serpents without any rejection. As time passed, the bronze serpent avatar's strength became weaker and weaker, and its eyes gradually dimmed. On the other hand, Hong Ling was in high spirits and roared like a dragon. Roar! A ball of intense flames was spat out. Hong Ling raised his head and instantly killed the bronze serpent avatar. First one. Lin Feng stopped in his tracks, his eyes sparkling. Killing 3 birds with 1 stone while cultivating in the battle snake hall? That was not the case. In fact, it was killing 4 birds with 1 stone. Other than the nurturing of the 100 poison-colored python, Hong Ling's crazy increase in strength, and Lin Feng's increase in physical strength, there was a 4th gain. The 13th battle snake hall. Finally, Lin Feng smiled indifferently, his eyes shining brightly. A giant serpent whose entire body was covered in sparkling flames angrily howled through the entire war snake palace. However, Lin Feng stood indifferently in the center of the war snake palace. The flames in his hand wildly rose, appearing both sinister and ferocious. This was the fire of engulfment that could swallow everything. This time, Hong Ling wasn't present. This was because it was his turn to devour. The 4th gain. The strengthening of the fire of engulfment. Boom, boom, boom. The flame serpent's aura was surging and shocking. The power that was like the might of the heavens gushed out crazily. The flame serpent's eyes flashed with intense flames, its vicious gaze wanting to tear Lin Feng into 1,000 pieces. The flames were released crazily, gathering from all directions as if wanting to burn down the entire palace. The intense burning sensation was as intense as the heavens. But hiss, the fire of engulfment flickered. Lin Feng's expression was calm. The flames were ferocious. The 2 different flames collided, and the flame serpent's fire was instantly devoured. It couldn't resist at all. Last time, I absorbed the flame energy of 2 battle snake clones. I wonder how much I can absorb this time. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. The strengthening of the fire of engulfment through devouring was the fastest, especially devouring all kinds of flames. The guardian serpent of the battle snake hall had a lot of energy. I hope I can devour enough flames. Half a year later, the fire of engulfment has improved by another level. Lin Feng clenched his fists, and the flames flared up again. The fire of engulfment was his trump card now. Lin Feng's cultivation began in an orderly manner. In the first month, the efficiency wasn't high. Even though Hong Ling's strength had increased by 1 level, he had only reached the 88th battle snake hall. However, at the beginning of the 2nd month, as Hong Ling's strength increased once again, the efficiency increased rapidly. Even the 100 poison-colored python strength had also increased. However, Lin Feng's own improvement was slow. The effect of the one-star battlesnake snake-all was definitely slightly inferior. However, the road had to be taken step by step. Absorbing Hongling's strength from the one-star battlesnake is the most beneficial. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. Once the battlesnake clones in the battlesnake hall were killed, they would fall into a state of deep sleep and would not be able to enter again. Since he had plans to break through the Thousand Snake Cave, he might as well suppress it first before raising it. Perhaps the efficiency would be slower in the first 2 or 3 months, but as time passed, the efficiency would get higher and higher. Only half of the 3rd month had passed. Boom! Rumble! Dense fiery light covered the entire Battle Snake Hall. In the 300th Battle Snake Hall, the strongest one-star battlesnake was engulfed by the violent fire of engulfment. It was an unparalleled flame that was like the sky. The color of the crazy fire of engulfment became darker and darker, and its power was extremely terrifying. It had absorbed the flame energy of 7 battlesnake clones. The fire of engulfment finally improved. He threw the fire of rebirth to the back of his mind. Level 5 Star Technique. 100,000 star power points. Lin Feng's eyes glistened with starlight. This trip was indeed not in vain. His initial decision was very correct. Regardless of the level of his body, the fact that the fire of engulfment had been upgraded to the 5th level was already extremely terrifying. That was a level 5 star technique. Not only did the star cultivators of the main star of the special series reach Earth level 7, so did the total star cultivators. What did that mean? I don't need to comprehend a star technique. As long as I absorb enough star power, I can advance to star sector level 7. Lin Feng clenched his right fist. Looking at the huge snake that had once again fallen silent, Exine Ran smiled. This time it was all thanks to it. Although the stored star power has been exhausted, I still have many star fruits that I obtained in the 100 Falls. There is still more than 3 months left. I wonder how much my strength can be improved? Lin Feng's eyes glistened, and he was full of anticipation. Be it consuming the snake gall or absorbing the star fruits, it did not conflict with him entering the Battlesnake Hall. They could be done at the same time. The boundless sea was a natural treasure. It was the territory of the largest force in the Doling world, the demon race. There were countless demons of various races living in this sea area. In terms of numbers, they were several times more than the sorcerer race, the ancient race, and even the human race combined, although most of the demons were uncivilized. For example, the beast hordes in the Tianwu continent were like this. However, just like the sorcerer race, which had extraordinary talents, and the human race, which had ordinary aptitudes, the demon race was also very divided. In fact, the demon race valued their bloodline more than the human race. To them, bloodline was everything. The 4 supreme bloodlines and the 5 top bloodlines were where all the power of the demon race lay. For example, the heavenly dog race was one of the 5 top bloodlines and had a high status in the demon race. However, the 4 supreme bloodlines were much stronger. If the top bloodline was the king, then the supreme bloodline was the emperor of the demon race. Any ruler's identity and status were unparalleled. Flap, flap, flap. The sound of wings flapping could be heard. Every flap of the wings caused the space to vibrate violently. Its every movement contained the truth of heaven and earth. It was a huge, strange magical beast. It had the body of a tiger, the horns of a cow, and a spiral-shaped whip. Its scarlet skin looked as though it was carved with fresh blood. It was covered in layers of scales. Its thin wings were as sharp as blades. The most eye-catching part was its pair of wings. Huge wings. It was so big that it could wrap its entire body. Blood Tiger Quieken. He was alone. There was not a single demon race follower around this Blood Tiger, because there was no need for them. It was not that the Blood Tiger Quieken was very strong. In fact, Quieken was only a star sector level. In this boundless sea region, only saints had the power to protect themselves. Star sector level was still quite dangerous, but the Blood Tiger was different. He was the emperor. the emperor of the demon race, the top existence. Wherever he went, all the demon race who saw him had to bow. The four supreme bloodlines. He was only a step away from the legendary divine beast. Once he matured to the peak, the supreme bloodline would be a star sector level existence. The current Quiken did not look old, but he already had the strength of a star sector level. It was quite shocking. What a boring training. Quiken looked impatient. He flew casually in the air. The huge wings produced a strong wind pressure that seemed to cover the entire world. Suddenly, Quiken stopped abruptly. A fierce glint appeared in his eyes. What a strange level of space. There's actually a defensive formation that causes space disorder here. A pair of tiger eyes shone brightly. Quiken's huge wings flapped slower and slower. The surrounding airflow seemed to have stopped because of this. The blood tiger race had the talent of space Tao. Hence, they were very sensitive to space. In addition, Quiken's talent was not ordinary. Although he was a star sector level, one must know that he had such strength before reaching adulthood. One could imagine how ordinary he was. This place seems to be hiding something. Could it be an ancient treasure? Quiken's tiger eyes lit up. The scales all over his body made clanging sounds. The color of his red skin became much darker. The demon race familiar with him should know that at this moment, Quiken, his interest was piqued. Chapter 993. Chi. The claws were like lightning, and every strike was accompanied by the power of space. The terrifying power seemed to tear the space apart. Quiken's strength was quite terrifying. The surrounding air seemed to have frozen, and the entire space seemed to be controlled by Quiken. The thin scales on Quiken's wings kept moving, and the color of Quiken's scarlet skin deepened. The blood tiger was famous for its blood-like skin color. Damn it, it's so hard to break. Don't try to stump me. I'm Quiken. Quiken glared. Not only was his temper irritable, but he was also very proud. The spiral long tail spun, and the huge wings flapped faster and faster. Quiken's movements also sped up. In an instant, it was as if a saber was slashing through the air, constantly piercing the space. The clanging sounds were endless, but it seemed to have no effect. 2 hours later. This is so infuriating. What the hell is this? Quiken gasped for breath, and the scales on his body stood up. He was incomparably angry. With his strength, he could not break through this layer of defense. Naturally, he was hysterical. One had to know that the Blood Tiger clan was proficient in the art of space, but now he was stumped by a chaotic space array. If news of this spread, he would become a laughing stock. You want to waste time with me? All right, since I, Quiken, have all the time, I'll play with you until the end. Quiken was so angry that his eyes turned red, and his sharp claws slashed through the air again. The power of space followed Kuei Kun like a shadow. On Kuei Kun's forehead, a dark red king character appeared. The power of each strike was gradually increasing. Following the king word, Quiken's expression became more and more terrifying. His bloodline and aptitude were quite terrifying. Tianwu continent. What's going on? Why have there been so many earthquakes recently? Lin Yin frowned, puzzled. Maybe it's a sign of natural disaster, Tianqing said slowly. I keep feeling that it's a little dangerous. Lin Yin pressed his chest, a trace of worry flashing between his brows. Just like Lin Feng, he had the ability to foresee danger. Lin Yun's eyes burned as he thought to himself. Could it be that the calamity that Big Brother spoke of is coming early? After a full 3 months of investigation, there was still no result. Lin Yun was very clear that the catastrophe this time was most likely unavoidable. The chances of killing the calamity while it was still in the bud were very slim. At this moment, he was naturally really worried. Your Majesty, there's no need to worry. No matter how big the problem is, the Holy King will take care of it. Tianqing smiled. Lin Feng's return, Lin Yin did not hide it from everyone, and in fact, Lin Feng himself did not care. He knew in his heart that in the kingdom of Meru, he was a needle that strengthened the heart, a needle that stabilized the sea. His existence could make everyone feel at ease. Why not do it? Lin Yun's mouth curved slightly, faintly smiling, but the worry in his eyes was still there. The calamity this time was quite terrifying. But Lin Yun did not tell everyone this because it had not been confirmed. Moreover, even if he told Tianqing and the rest, what use would it be? With their strength, it was not enough to face this terrifying calamity. I hope so. Lin Yun nodded in response to Tianqing. But before he finished speaking, in a split second, rumble, as if the earth was shaking, the violent earthquake appeared again, much more terrifying than any of the previous ones. This feeling, as if the entire Tianwu continent was about to be lifted up. The earthquake did not stop. Lin Yun and Tianqing's faces became uglier and uglier. Not only the two of them, but all the people of the kingdom of Meru were clearly worried, whispering to each other on the streets. The air was filled with unknown and panic. Danger was approaching step by step. Ha ha. Ha ha ha. This broken formation. Let's see how long you can block it. Quikin's tiger eyes were full of radiance, and the king word on his forehead was shining brightly. The angrier he was, the stronger he was. After hacking for a few days, a crack finally appeared on the defensive formation, and Quikin was naturally very proud. He saw that victory was in sight. I want to see. This thing is so tightly hidden. What is it? Breathing heavily, Quikin did not stop and continued to break the formation. At this time, the space was no longer stable but chaotic, but Quikin seemed to be in the center of a tornado and was not affected at all. Claws rose and fell, and the scales on his body stood up in anger, and the protective shield-like formation gradually shattered. Bit by bit, it shattered like a turtle's pattern. In Quikin's eyes, there was a look of pride. The facts proved that he was the strongest. A broken formation wanted to stop him? What a joke. Boom! Once again breaking the defensive formation, Quikin roared to the sky, but this time he opened a big hole in the formation. The defensive formation was almost completely shattered. It was like a balloon that had a small pinhole-like hole poked in it, and it had already begun to leak. So much life, energy. It's all because of those wretched humans. Quikin's eyes revealed a look of disdain, but he did not care at all. As someone with a supreme bloodline, his senses were naturally outstanding. But then this. Quikin stepped back in shock, as if he had been electrocuted. He looked at the small hole in the defensive formation with a twisted face. It was not anger, but deep shock and fear. His eyes were filled with disbelief, and his body trembled violently. It was like a mouse seeing a cat. No, impossible. How is this possible? No. With almost hysterical screams, Quikin fled crazily like a stray dog. Like a bolt of lightning, he flashed across the sky. Quikin did not even dare to look back. The scales on his body kept trembling, and the spiral long tail was completely curled up, unable to move. He seemed to have seen something that he should not have seen. Thousand Snake Cave. The 4th month. Lin Feng had reached the 5th rank of the Cosmic Lord level. Every day, his strength was steadily increasing. The absorption of star fruits and snake gallbladder. Lin Feng was abnormally crazy, and as Hongling's strength increased, everything was progressing steadily. At the end of the 4th month, Lin Feng had already cleared the 600th Battle Snake Palace. 2-star Battle Snake Palace and 3-star Battle Snake Palace. Start. The Battle Snake strength was higher. Unlike the 2-star Battle Snake Palace, although each Battle Snake Palace was steadily increasing, the difference was very small. The difference between a 3-star Battle Snake and a 2-star Battle Snake was like the difference between a Cosmic Realm and a Cosmic Lord. Lin Feng could easily dodge the attacks of the 2-star Battle Snake Avatar with Mist Cloud Steps, but in front of the 3-star Battle Snake Avatar, he was completely suppressed. Pung! Pung! Lin Feng's chest felt like it had been struck by lightning. For the first time, the mysteries of Mist Cloud Steps were completely suppressed. So strong. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. It was a black, slender giant snake. It didn't look special, but its tail was very special. It was like a whip, and no matter how he dodged, he couldn't leave its range. He felt that his whereabouts were completely locked by it. This black giant snake was very strange. Strange ability, but it's really powerful. Again, Lin Feng wasn't discouraged at all and continued to fight. After 4 months of being relaxed, he didn't lose his fighting spirit. He was waiting for this moment. Fight again. As if knowing his master's thoughts, Hong Ling retreated to the side with Lin Feng's shout. With extreme light flashing in his eyes, Lin Feng challenged the black giant snake again. His momentum and fighting spirit didn't weaken at all. Instead, he had a faint smile on his face. Pong, pong, pong. After repeated collisions, Lin Feng stood up again and again. Again, again, again. Lin Feng's eyes were stubborn and shining. He kept using mist cloud steps and stubbornly challenged the black giant snake. Even if his body was made of iron, it wouldn't be able to withstand the repeated attacks. But now, the strength of his body had reached an unimaginable level. Even if this black giant snake's strength had long reached the peak of Star Sector level, but its tail whip could only injure him. The recovery power of the phoenix blood was enough to make up for this disadvantage. Pain was nothing to him. Although his body felt tired, he had to persevere. This was an opportunity. It was quite rare. 4 months, a full 4 months of continuous practice of mist cloud steps. I've long had the feeling of a breakthrough. Now it's the best opportunity. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. From another perspective, this black giant snake was a free sparring partner. It just happened to help him break through. 2 hours, 6 hours, 20 hours. Time continued to pass. But Lin Feng still persisted. Soon, that's it. Lin Feng's eyes flickered, and the corners of his mouth rose slightly. His footsteps became more and more rhythmic and rhythmic. Now, his speed had increased greatly compared to before. The improvement of mist cloud steps not only required speed, but also rhythm. The shorter the interval, the harder it was to comprehend. But the most important thing was to grasp the Tao of space. Everything was ready, except for the east wind. Time and time again. If he failed, he would get up again. That was the most precious experience time and time again. Its domain. It's the feeling of this domain, the sense of hierarchy of space. Lin Feng's eyes flashed, resembling resplendent stars. In his own state, the vast star pupil was completely enhanced to the 5th level. At this moment, the vast star pupil was completely released. The new comprehension and the new understanding of space caused the vast star pupil to enter a whole new realm. His body inexplicably entered a blurred state, and his footsteps easily dodged the tail whip of the black giant snake. The surrounding feeling was abnormally clear. That familiar spatial energy seemed to be dancing and surging. So that's how it is. Lin Feng smiled in realization. At this moment, he finally understood why this black giant snake could always find him. Chapter 994. Spacebind. Ingenious use of geographical advantage and control of space. It doesn't need to know my location, but it can completely sense it. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He completely understood. This giant black snake was extremely proficient in spatial energy and completely controlled his movements. It was as if there was a rope tied to his body. No matter where he moved, it could clearly sense it, unless he was far away from the Battlesnake Palace. But that was obviously impossible. The giant black snake displayed its strength to the fullest. Therefore, even if its speed was inferior to his, its attacking methods were enough to make up for it. But now, this move was useless. Thank you. Lin Feng smiled. His feet moved rapidly as if he was teleporting. The giant black snake's tail whip was still as sharp as ever, but every time it was about to hit, it would hit the afterimage and turn into nothingness. This caused the giant black snake to roar again and again. It was the first time it was defeated, and it was quite angry. Speed. Control of the Tao of space. His mist cloud steps had advanced to the 4th level. I didn't expect that the advancement of the mist cloud steps would lead to the advancement of the vast star eyes. That's unexpected. Lin Feng smiled. However, The light in his eyes had dimmed by a bit. The vast star eyes had advanced to the 4th level, but the vast star eyes remained at the 3rd level. Different levels couldn't maintain the same frequency, and he couldn't use it in his current state. In terms of spatial perception, Lin Feng was now weaker than before. But another level. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. The advancement of his Miss Cloud steps was the real deal. He didn't need to have a strong understanding of space, and he didn't need to surpass the giant black snake, because his speed had far surpassed the giant black snake. Just this point alone was enough to restrain it. Although the giant black snake could bind him through space and control his position. So what? Its bind was only a sensory bind, and it wasn't a complete bind. From the time it raised its tail whip to the time it fell, he could easily dodge it. The movement speed of the Miss Cloud steps was quite fast. Whoosh! Lin Feng dodged again. After images appeared one after another. At this moment, the red silk appeared and began to absorb the energy. For months had passed, and Lin Feng was not the only one whose strength had increased. Hong Ling had also benefited greatly. Even 100 poisons colored python, small mischief, was now much stronger than before. What will happen in half a year? I wonder if I can handle it with my current ability. My body's strength, my devouring flames, and even my strength have increased by quite a bit. I hope we can get through this safely. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. He was still a little worried. After all, this time was extraordinary. The boundless sea. It didn't catch up. Quicken gasped for breath, his face pale. Thank goodness the demon didn't chase after us. No wonder they set up such a powerful defensive formation. I see. Quicken's teeth were chattering. It was obvious that he was truly frightened, quite frightened. Even his legs felt like jelly. Wait. Quicken was startled. His shocked tiger eyes revealed a hint of doubt. There should be an island in the formation. Other than the demon, I also smell the life aura of many humans. There are humans living here, and there are quite a lot of them. Strange, Kuei-kun furrowed his brows tightly, unable to understand. Logically speaking, the demon couldn't possibly live with humans, right? Strange. Damn it. If only I could have looked more carefully just now. Quicken frowned. He felt extremely regretful. However, he was unwilling to return to meet that devil. It was an innate fear. Inform father. There's no time to lose. I have to hurry back. Perhaps I can still record a merit, but it's much better than gambling with my life. Quicken's tiger eyes burned as he thought to himself. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared from this area. Lin Feng didn't know that in this short period of time, the people of the kingdom of Meru had saved their lives. If Quicken really barged in, given his strength and character, it would definitely be a bloodbath. Other than Lin Feng, who could stop the terrifying Blood Tiger clan. However, many things were already destined. Just like what Elder Tianji had predicted, the real calamity was there were still 2 months left. The accumulation was good. It was out of control. While the kingdom of Meru escaped the calamity, Lin Feng's strength increased crazily. The 5th month was the most shocking month. Lin Feng's strength level increased to star sector level 6. The improvement of the devouring fire led to the improvement of the fire of rebirth. He broke through the Star Lord level, comprehended 4-star techniques, and officially entered the Star Sector level. Finally, it's a little slower than expected. However, it's still here. Lin Feng smiled calmly with bright eyes. From the beginning, he had been using the fire of rebirth to fight. Why? It was precisely because he hoped to comprehend the mystery of the fire of rebirth during the battle and advance it. Just like the improvement of the Miss Cloud steps, there was no shortcut to the improvement of combat strength. Apart from diligent comprehension and cultivation, actual combat was the key. The fire of rebirth is the fastest way to improve comprehension, but it's still a little different from the devouring fire. Lin Feng's eyes were burning as he nodded. The devouring fire was an offensive flame that improved with continuous devouring. It was an offensive flame, while the fire of rebirth was a defensive flame. Using battle to improve the fire of rebirth is far less efficient than using the devouring fire. Besides, in the past 5 months, I haven't encountered a strong enough opponent to force the fire of rebirth to advance. Crisis was very important. For example, the Mist Cloud Steps was comprehended under crisis. Often, under the shroud of immense pressure, people would occasionally erupt with unimaginable power and enter a wondrous state. However, his fire of rebirth had never been able to enter such a state. Hence, the breakthrough was rather late. Instead of a breakthrough, it was more like an advancement due to the momentum. After all, the devouring fire was already a 5th-level star technique. It was more or less affecting the improvement of the fire of rebirth. They were bound together. He didn't know how long he had been cultivating. Soon, it was the last month. Lin Feng had run out of ammunition and food. He had absorbed all the star fruits he had obtained in the 100 Falls and turned them into the pure star power. His strength had increased to star sector level rank 7, which was the highest level he could reach at the moment. In fact, Lin Feng's total star cultivation had only reached Earth Stage 7. If he wanted to advance further, he would have to comprehend a 6th-level star technique. In the 900th Hall of Battle Snakes. Phew! Lin Feng let out a long sigh, a relieved smile appearing on his face. His eyes were shining brightly. The vast star eyes and star sky eyes were in a state of complete equality, just like 2 stars in the sky. At the last moment, the star sky eyes broke through. That was close. If the star sky eyes didn't break through, I would be in big trouble. Lin Feng secretly felt lucky, but he had also forced himself into a desperate situation. Whether or not he could use the self-state had a great impact on his combat strength. If the vast star eyes were at the 4th level and the star sky eyes were at the 3rd level, the energy of the two would not be equal, and he would not be able to reach a balance and enter the self-state. However, there was no need to worry now. In the self-state, the 4th level of the pupil technique is perfectly integrated. The 4th level of the top-notch pupil is comparable to the peak of the 6th level of the 1st-grade pupil. Lin Feng clenched his fists confidently. In half a year, he had been reborn. If he saw Lam Tok Ti again, he would be able to kill him with his current strength. In fact, he did not have to do it himself. Lin Feng smiled faintly and looked at the fire-scale battle snake, Hong Ling, on his right. In this half a year, Hong Ling's improvement was not any worse than his. Now, it was a complete giant dragon. It was covered in fiery red scales and had a majestic aura. Its huge body was accompanied by a shocking and terrifying aura. It was not any worse than the 3-star battle snake avatar in front of him. Hong Ling had reached the peak of the star sector level. Even if it was me, it would not be so easy to beat Hong Ling. Lin Feng smiled faintly. Together with it, we are even more invincible when the 2 snakes work together. Lin Feng smiled and glanced at the rainbow staff. A gentle white light shone, bringing with it a sense of terror. The 100 poison-colored python had also accumulated a lot of energy and broke through continuously in the last 2 months. It was indeed because the 3-star battle snake's energy was quite abundant that its level was completely raised. Now, the 100 poison-colored python was only slightly weaker than Hong Ling. It had reached the star sector level 9. Its combat strength was not inferior at all, especially that lethal poison on its body. Even a little bit of it could turn one into ashes. Compared to half a year ago, it is completely different. Lin Feng smiled faintly, full of confidence. His strength could be said to have multiplied again and again. Just the increase in the strength of his body alone had reached an unimaginable level. Not to mention, he had improved significantly in all aspects. His overall strength had increased by more than 10 times. It had far exceeded his expectations half a year ago. Stop playing. Hong Ling, quickly finish it off, Lin Feng said faintly. Hong Ling had already completely absorbed. After reaching the peak of the star sector level, the next breakthrough would be the legendary, a saint-level existence. It was easier said than done. With a roar, Hong Ling, who had received Lin Feng's order, was instantly filled with fighting spirit and stopped absorbing energy. In fact, the 3-star battle snake avatar was already dying and listless. With Hong Ling's current strength, his absorption of the constellation power was naturally quite fast. The efficiency was shocking. In an instant, bang, bang, dense flames covered the sky and earth. Hong Ling seemed to be showing off as he madly launched fierce attacks on the 3-star battle snake avatar. That was an overwhelming advantage. It was a completely indiscriminate attack. Victory and defeat were decided in the blink of an eye. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded. Lin Feng's lips curled up slightly. Feeling the last 3-star battle snake avatar being killed, it meant that he had swept through the 900 battle snake palaces in the first level of the 1,000 snake cave in less than half a year. His goal was perfectly achieved, but at this moment there was a sudden change. Oh! Lin Feng's eyes burned, and his expression changed. Chapter 995. There was a rapid change in space. As though it was twisting, the entire Battle Snake Palace became extremely illusionary. Lin Feng's bright eyes looked straight ahead, shining like the stars. In his current state, the sensing ability of his peak rank 4 eyes was rather clear. All of the spatial energy gathered in one place, condensing a part of his aura, forming a huge spatial crack. ZZ. Like lightning, it was like a snake. A huge constellation image appeared above the space crack, emitting a powerful aura. It was rather terrifying. Ophiuchus constellation? Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he recognized the constellation in front of him. Such a strong space energy level. It is coming from the other side of the crack. This is not a chaotic space crack. It should be a teleportation exit. The place it leads to is probably rather dangerous. Lin Feng's heart shook as he pondered. He could clearly sense that the space crack that appeared in front of him was definitely not ordinary. Danger and opportunity coexisted. Should he enter or not? Instantly, Lin Feng made his decision. Since this spatial crack appeared after the 900th Battle Serpent Hall was killed, it means it definitely has something to do with the Battle Snake Palace. It is worth a try. With a firm heart, Lin Feng stepped forward. He had no reason to retreat and not enter the tiger's den. How could he obtain the tiger's cub? Demon Race, Blood Shadow Island. This was one of the 4 huge islands in the Endless Ocean region. Its area was close to 1/10 of the entire Doling world. It was rather vast. However, the Blood Shadow Island was rather empty, because one of the 4 races of the Demon Race, the Blood Tiger race, lived here. The Blood Tiger race had the highest bloodline, reaching the peak of Star Domain when they reached adulthood. Their talent was the Tao of Space, and they were the top fighting force of the Demon Race. One of the 4 emperors of the Demon Race. Father. Quiken broke in. His breathing was rapid, and his expression was filled with shock. Why did you come back? The one who spoke was a middle-aged man with a dignified aura. His thick eyebrows furrowed as he stared coldly at Quiken. The training period is not over yet. Don't tell me that you fled back here in a cowardly manner. His tiger-like eyes seemed to be able to see through people's hearts, and his entire body emitted an oppressive aura. The Blood Tiger clan's saint, Kuei Zheng. No, it's not like that, father. Quiken's face turned green as he hastily explained. He didn't want to make his father angry. The consequences would be disastrous. Speak. Hearing this, Kuei Zheng withdrew his aura and closed his eyes. Quiken let out a long sigh of relief. He wiped the cold sweat on his forehead with his right arm, and his tiger-like eyes shone fiercely. It's like this, father. I discovered a big secret during this training. Because this is a serious matter, I didn't dare to handle it alone, so I hurried back to report it to you, father. Oh, Kuei Zheng's eyes opened slightly, revealing a hint of curiosity. Tell me about it. Quiken's eyes were filled with shock and fear. He lowered his voice and said, Father, I saw the ancestor. Ancestor? Kuei Zheng asked doubtfully. Quiken's body trembled. That ferocious and terrifying face appeared in front of his eyes, as if it wanted to tear everything into pieces. Yes, father. It's the ancestor recorded in the genealogy. Demon Kuei, too. Impossible. Kuei Zheng's eyes glowed as he stood up abruptly. Kuei too died in the Second War of the Liches and Demons. It's true, father. Kuikin's face was pale as he said anxiously, not only did I see it with my own eyes, but I also personally felt that terrifying aura. It's from the same lineage as my blood tiger clan. Even, Kuikin swallowed his saliva, his eyes filled with fear. Ancestor is still alive. He spoke to me. What? Kuei Zheng's eyes widened. Ta. Lin Feng stepped on the ground. He looked at his surroundings in shock, feeling a little distracted. Where's this place? Lin Feng looked around and frowned. After coming out of the spatial crack, he arrived at this strange place. At this moment, he was standing in the starry sky, surrounded by dazzling stars. However, he felt uncomfortable. It's oppressive. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. This place feels so oppressive. My heart feels heavy. The level of the domain is quite high. Even with my vast star eyes, it's difficult to escape from his control. Lin Feng quickly understood, his eyes shining. The surrounding stars were shining brightly, reflecting each other. However, there was only a huge palace floating in the void in front of him. It seemed to be made of stone, and the structure was quite ancient. However, it emitted a mysterious and terrifying aura. At the front of the palace, the star statue of the Ophiuchus constellation entered his eyes. This palace is... Lin Feng was shocked, his chest undulating. The feeling was extremely terrifying. The power was as strong as the sky, and he couldn't resist it. But, since I'm here, there's no reason for me to be forced back by this aura. The calamity will come soon. Instead of being frustrated, I'd better fight now. Clenching his fist, Lin Feng's eyes were firm. Although he had improved a lot compared to half a year ago, he still felt that the unknown danger was extremely terrifying. It seemed that he still couldn't resist it. There are still 10 days. It should be enough. Lin Feng gritted his teeth. His figure flashed, and he went forward. The surrounding pressure was suffocating. It was even more restrictive than the Douling world. His speed slowed down a lot. It took him a full 10 seconds to reach the palace that was right in front of him. So big, so majestic. This aura is really terrifying. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat as he looked up. Just now, he could feel the power of this ancient palace from 10,000 miles away. Now that he had really stepped into this palace, he felt a different feeling. This feeling was familiar. Lin Feng's eyes were burning, and his chest was heaving up and down. It was the feeling he had when he went to find Shi Jixin and faced the saint Shakira. It was a feeling of insignificance, a feeling of looking up. Phew! Lin Feng let out a long breath. I seem to have come to an incredible place. As expected, none of the 4 great forbidden lands are ordinary. The 100 Waterfalls is like this, and so is the 1,000 Snake Cave. His heart trembled. Lin Feng looked at the statue in front of the palace that was 10,000 feet tall. He looked up but couldn't reach it. The statue was lifelike, and what was carved was the constellation of the Ophiuchus constellation. It was a transcendent existence with snakes coiled around his body. The statue seemed to be alive, and he felt abnormally alarmed. It was as if his every action and every thought was under the control of him. It's amazing, Lin Feng thought softly. This time, he deeply felt his insignificance. In front of this heavenly might, he was like an ant. This huge palace was completely different from the 900 palaces from before. It was more than 10,000 times bigger and majestic. The ancient structure felt as if it had been there for centuries, but its appearance was not damaged at all. It was obvious that this was not an ordinary stone. Since I'm here, I might as well take it easy. Let's go in and take a look. Lin Feng's heart moved slightly, and his eyes shone. He took a deep breath and suppressed the trembling in his heart. Although he was insignificant here, it didn't mean that he would shrink back and admit defeat. As a warrior, why would he be afraid of danger? Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he prepared to take a step forward. Suddenly, bang! Lin Feng's heart trembled violently. His expression changed, and he stopped in his tracks at that moment. In the depths of the palace, within the darkness, A slender figure appeared step by step as if he was teleporting, shrinking the ground to an inch. The seemingly slow steps were extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it was in front of him and looked down at him. Lin Feng instantly recovered. He moved his fists, but his body seemed to be stiff and couldn't move at all. It was a human who was taller than him by a head. The slender figure was naked, and his 8-pack abs were very clear. His hands were behind his back, and his eyes were crystal clear like a goldfish, as if he could see through him. But the most shocking thing was that on his forehead, there was a sharp horn like a rhinoceros. He wasn't human. Saint. He is a saint. Lin Feng's face was slightly pale, and he felt powerless. He was completely controlled. A force that seemed to bind his mind had wrapped around him, and he couldn't move at all. That power was far from what he could contend against. He felt that the strength of a true saint was even stronger than that of the saint, Shakala. If this one-horned freak wanted to kill him, it would be as easy as flipping his hand. But the one-horned freak laughed loudly. His laughter was clear and loud. His laughter echoed in the endless void. The one-horned freak turned his head, and his figure suddenly disappeared without a trace. No, he flew away. The pressure around him disappeared in the blink of an eye. With the departure of the one-horned freak, Lin Feng returned to normal. What terrifying strength! Lin Feng's chest heaved up and down as he thought to himself. He looked in the direction where the single-horned freak had left and saw a shadow enter one of the bright stars around the palace. It then disappeared like a shooting star, leaving no trace of its aura. That is his residence? Lin Feng looked at the bright stars, and he was shocked. Looking around, there were as many as 12 stars, and they seemed to be slowly rotating around the palace. Each star had a unique aura. Could it be? There's a saint in every star, right? Lin Feng smiled wryly, but his eyes were shining brightly. He clenched his fists and felt a deep sense of unwillingness, which instantly turned into a strong motivation. In front of a saint, he had no power to fight back. Sure enough, just like what Shi Jixin said that day, everyone below the saint is an ant. Lin Feng's heart was even more determined. Cultivation was not a process of competing with others, but a path of self-transformation. Looking at the pitch-black area in front of him with bright eyes, Lin Feng took a deep breath, calmed his emotions, and immediately went forward. Chapter 996. It was the same thousand-snake cave and the same palace. However, the feeling was completely different. It was as if he had entered a new area. This place, the aura is so heavy. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he looked around. The palace was solemn and solemn. It was extremely quiet in the hollow. Along the way, he saw all kinds of strange stone sculptures. There were majestic black-armored dwarves, huge hippopotamus-type beasts, and strange races that were as thin as scarecrows. There were all kinds of strange creatures. In the Battle Snake Hall, all the stone sculptures were battle snakes, but here, Lin Feng was confused. Looking at these stone sculptures, the single-horned monster that he saw previously appeared in his mind. It felt very similar. It was not their strength, but there was something similar. They were not humans. I have seen all kinds of races in the Battle Snake Town. Could it be that these stone sculptures came about because of this? But are they dead or alive? Lin Feng was curious. However, he could not find anything after careful observation. Although he did not understand, since he did not have an answer, he could only continue forward. Perhaps there would be a light at the end of the tunnel. The palace was quite big. However, the direction was not hard to find. Walking straight, this was a broad road. There were all kinds of stone pillars that supported the palace. Step by step, Lin Feng's eyes were burning. He was extremely cautious. This was different from the Battle Snake Hall. In such an unfamiliar territory, he could not let his guard down. Perhaps danger was right in front of him. Pum! His heart skipped a beat. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. There was a commotion in front of him. The aura was extremely strong. It's a battle. Lin Feng could clearly feel it. He was very familiar with the space vibrations caused by the strong aura. As he walked forward, his senses became clearer. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. He clenched his right fist. It's not a battle between saints. It's two-star, sector-level warriors. It seems like the victor will be decided soon. Lin Feng nodded thoughtfully and looked forward. One of the aura was very weak, almost dying. The other aura was still strong. Although he couldn't see it, he could clearly sense it. Whoosh! Lin Feng immediately sped up and rushed forward. Although this matter had nothing to do with him, since it was happening in this ancient palace, perhaps he could learn something from it. As if sensing his arrival, that powerful aura suddenly erupted in an instant. The attack was like a thunderstorm, extremely fierce. Hua! Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he descended. What he saw was a green-faced man with extremely demonic eyes. As if he had felt his gaze, the green-faced man also looked over, his eyes filled with malevolence and hostility. At this moment, a weirdo with long ears let out a violent cry and fell heavily to the ground. He spat out blood, and his body turned into specks of light. That dying aura just now was him. In an instant, Hua, violent energy fluctuations. Rich star energy suddenly descended, completely enveloping the aura of the strange long-eared man. As the light on the long-eared man's body faded bit by bit, the star energy slowly gathered. In an instant, Lin Feng was stunned. Looking in front of him in shock, Lin Feng was speechless. It was a perfectly completed stone sculpture, as if it had rich vitality. Especially the pair of long ears. They were exceptionally eye-catching. Lin Feng looked to the other side, only to see that the corpse of the long-eared man had already disappeared. So these stone sculptures. Lin Feng was completely shocked. Only now did he realize that the stone sculptures he saw just now came from this place. He felt his hair stand on end. If you die here, I'm afraid you won't be reincarnated, Lin Feng thought to himself. Along the way, he had seen at least thousands of stone sculptures. In other words, thousands of warriors of other races had died in this palace, becoming living fossils. But at this moment, he couldn't stay in a daze. The aura in front of him was explosive, and the hostility was very strong. The green-faced man looked over, revealing a murderous aura. Pan! Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and his aura instantly condensed. Although he didn't know why he had to fight, he couldn't just sit and wait for death. If this green-faced man wanted to fight, then he would fight. He had never been afraid of fighting. Perhaps the geographical advantage wasn't suitable for him. Perhaps this green-faced man was indeed very strong, but he wasn't that saint-level single-horn monster. He was just a star sector level. In an instant, whoosh! The green-faced man's eyes were filled with murderous intent, but he instantly fled. A battle had turned into nothing. Laughing involuntarily, Lin Feng couldn't help but shake his head. Although he didn't know what had happened, he wouldn't gain anything from winning such a pointless battle. Moreover, the green-faced man's aura was still very strong. He was a peak star sector-level existence. Even if he won, it wouldn't be easy. He would have to pay a price. It would probably have a great impact on the upcoming calamity. It was better if he didn't fight. It seems like he's trying to snatch something. Lin Feng's eyes were bright. He thought of the green-faced man he saw just now. There seemed to be a strange brand on his right hand that looked like a crystal. He seemed to have seen something similar before, but he didn't have any memory of it. Perhaps this belongs to him in the first place. Maybe I'm being paranoid. Lin Feng smiled and immediately threw his doubts to the back of his mind. Right now, he had to focus and not let his guard down. As he went deeper into the palace, he felt more and more serious. What a strong aura. Lin Feng was abnormally moved. Just now, he was attracted by the battle and couldn't sense it clearly. But now, he could feel a majestic aura not far away. It made his heart tremble. It was the heaven-like power he felt outside the palace. Now, it was clearer, more natural, and much more terrifying. Should he go in or not? How would I know if I don't go in? Lin Feng's eyes were burning. If he was scared away by such unknown danger, then he wouldn't be Lin Feng. Lin Feng took a deep breath. After passing through layers of obstacles and entering the deepest part of the palace, he was completely enlightened. It was a huge disk space. It seemed to be floating in midair, and its aura was strong and majestic. It was a giant snake that looked alive. Its indigo skin was complicated and had a slightly irregular shape. It spiraled up, and the snake's head was eye-catching. The terrifying aura was emitted by it. No, it was him. The heaven-like power he felt was exactly the same as his aura. Saint level. It's actually a saint-level existence. Lin Feng looked at the giant indigo snake from afar and was shocked. The Thousand Snake Cave was indeed beyond his expectations. Compared to the 100 Falls, it was much more terrifying. Here, he had already seen the second saint-level existence, and this might just be the tip of the iceberg. After all, he had just entered this space, and there were still many places that he had not explored. He's alive? Lin Feng's chest rose and fell slightly. It was completely different from the Battle Snake Palace from before. This was a new level. Just this giant indigo snake alone was different. It floated in the center of the disk, and its huge body occupied almost 1/10 of the surface area. Around the giant indigo snake, 12 statues stood in order, looking mighty and extraordinary. It's him. Lin Feng's eyes widened. The first thing he saw was the stone statue of the one-horned strange man. He had a deep impression of it. It was lifelike, exactly the same. Strange, isn't he alive? Lin Feng was puzzled. He could not figure out what was going on. What he saw just now was that he would become a stone statue after death, a living fossil. But what was going on now? The one-horned strange man was clearly alive, but there was a stone statue. Looking behind the stone statue, there was an oval-shaped door of light that was flashing. A transmission channel. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Although he was puzzled, he forced himself to suppress it. Looking around, he saw a total of 12 stone statues that stood like guardians. Behind these 12 stone statues, there were 12 identical oval-shaped doors of light. Everything was very orderly, and the feeling was getting clearer. That's it. It's exactly the same as the 12 stars outside the palace. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he immediately reacted. Outside the palace, 12 stars revolved around the huge palace. Wasn't it similar to the 12 stone statues that surrounded the giant indigo snake? It was as if the protection is average. Lin Feng nodded and thought to himself, besides the one-horned strange man, he is also here. Lin Feng glanced at another stone statue. It was the green-faced man he saw just now. These 12 stone statues are different from the stone statues outside the disk. The stone statues outside have no aura, but the stone statues here vaguely emit a mark of life. It's just that they're enveloped by his aura, so the feeling is very weak. But it really exists. Lin Feng quickly came to a conclusion. The same stone statues did not mean that they were the same type. There was a fundamental difference between the two. I got it. Lin Feng stared at the giant indigo snake in front of him. Everything seemed to have come together in an instant. This is probably the second level of the Thousand Snake Acupoint that Little Sore mentioned. It's so similar to the Battle Snake Palace Hall, but it has a different strong power. Other than that, I can't think of any other possibility. Lin Feng laughed. He probably accidentally entered the second level of the Thousand Snake Acupoint. Little Sword had mentioned before that only the most outstanding martial artists of the Ophiuchus constellation could enter, including the one-horned strange man, the green-faced man, and the other 10 stone statues. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. These 12 martial artists, if he did not guess wrongly, should have the same status as the Battle Snake envoys. And the reason why there was killing outside was because there are only 12 Battle Snake envoys. Outside the palace, there are 12 revolving stars. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. At this moment, he completely understood. Suddenly, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. That is... Chapter 997. The disc was not fixed. As it rotated, the disc was actually slowly rotating. He's moving. Lin Feng was surprised. His eyes lit up as he shook his head. No, I'm the one who's moving. The place where he stood was the bottom of the disc. The disc that looked like a single layer actually had 3 layers of rings, one layer after another. The highest level was where he existed. He was high and mighty, and his heavenly might made people look up to him. The second level was where the 12 statues protected him like guardian deities. The 12 oval-shaped teleportation channels were also on the second level. After the third layer, it was where he was. There was nothing special about it. However, he was rotating. Not only was he moving, the rings on the second layer were also rotating. It felt like it's the same as the 12 stars revolving around this palace. With he as the center, the second layer rotates first, and the third layer rotates again. One layer rotates around the other, forming a stable cycle. It's like a circle of the same level. Lin Feng was deep in thought. His eyes were shining. He felt the existence of a barrier. Right now, there was an invisible wall of light between the bottom level and the second level. Although he could feel the energy aura, he could not cross this light wall. He felt that something was missing. It was as if his cultivation had reached a bottleneck and could not break through. One layer was a lot worse. Obviously, the second layer was much higher. However, there was no way to enter at the moment. Let's look around first, Lin Feng said. Looking around, he was slightly curious. He was not in a hurry. There were still 10 days before the half-year deadline. Moreover, with Yu Miao, he could use this spatial door to return to the Sky Martial continent at any time. Now that he had entered this ancient palace, if he left without anything, wouldn't he have come for nothing? In the first layer of the Thousand Snake Cave, he could earn a lot. There was no reason for the second layer of the Thousand Snake Cave to be bad, right? At least, the 100 Falls was like this. The deeper he explored, the more he would get. But he didn't know. What would he get here? He carefully explored the outermost layer of the disc. It had the largest area and the widest coverage. Soon, Lin Feng discovered some of its mysteries. There were many strange imprints here. They were like murals on the stone walls, but they also looked like carvings. However, when one reached out to touch them, they did not feel anything. Upon closer inspection, he could sense the mysteries of the star techniques contained in them, but he couldn't obtain them. It felt as if there was an invisible barrier between them. This should be similar to the murals on the first floor of the Battle Serpent Hall. But this place is more profound and more direct. The restrictions should also be greater. Lin Feng nodded. The reason was probably because he was not from Ophiuchus constellation. Just as he was pondering, suddenly, with a burst of bright light, a figure inexplicably appeared in the distant stone wall. Lin Feng couldn't help but be slightly surprised. It was a strange being with bulging eyes. He was also a cosmic realm state being. His chi wasn't strong and was on par with the strange being with long ears. It was as if he had somehow drilled out of the stone wall. They looked at each other, but the strange being with bulging eyes didn't care about him at all. Instead, he disappeared instantly. Huh. Lin Feng smiled, finding it rather interesting. On the third floor of the disc, there were doors everywhere that led to every corner of the palace. Since we're both on the third floor, there's obviously no exchange of benefits. Lin Feng smiled. It was unlike the second floor, where there were only 12 positions. Hence, the competition for them was intense. The green-faced man and the strange being with long ears outside were probably competing for the position on the second floor. The reason why the green-faced man was hostile to him was probably because he thought that he was the same as the strange being with long ears. However, there was no need for him to fight with him. After all, there was more than one position on the second floor. He would hide as much as he could. In a flash, Lin Feng immediately arrived at the place where the strange being with bulging eyes appeared. His eyes were bright. It was a stone wall with imprints, and it didn't look much different from the other stone walls that he had seen. It should be some kind of cultivation place. Ophiuchus constellation can enter to cultivate, but I'm an outsider. I'm afraid I'm not qualified. Lin Feng smiled and didn't mind. If it was his, it couldn't escape. If it wasn't his, it wouldn't be useful even if he fought for it. As the saying goes, one shouldn't bite off more than one can chew. The Phoenix constellation wasn't necessarily worse than the Ophiuchus constellation. However, the cultivation environment there was obviously much better. Putting aside the rules that were similar to the gladiator arena, the branded star technique mysteries alone had never existed in the Doling world. It was as if there was a teacher teaching him, and he naturally comprehended it much faster. Perhaps there should be a trick to absorbing star power. Lin Feng pondered. As soon as he thought about it, Lin Feng's eyes lit up and he looked at the center of the disk. At this moment, the giant indigo snake's eyes shone brightly, and a terrifying and powerful aura suddenly burst out from its body. In a split second, 12 streams of air were shot out from its body, and like meteors, they drew beautiful parabolas and landed directly on the 12 statues on the second floor. Smack! 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 The aura of the 12 statues suddenly skyrocketed. This is... Lin Feng was shocked and shocked. This works too. Constellation energy. Ophiuchus constellation energy. Complete absorption. There was no need for any cultivation at all to absorb the powerful constellation energy. This is too convenient. Lin Feng laughed and shook his head. Such a cultivation method was simply unheard of. It was too convenient. No wonder people would fight for it. Just the absorption of star power alone is already very different. Not to mention the other aspects. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he completely understood. What he saw was just a drop in the ocean. The real benefits of the War Snake Envoy were definitely more than that. Otherwise, why would they fight for it? They stayed for a full 2 hours. Lin Feng then gave up helplessly. I didn't expect there to be an advantage on the first floor of the Thousand Snake Cave, but there's nothing on the second floor. Lin Feng shrugged, but there was nothing he could do. To the warriors of the Ophiuchus constellation, it was an impeccable cultivation ground. But to him, it was not of much use. That's strange. Since the second floor is useless to me, why did it open the door for me? Lin Feng was puzzled, but he could not figure it out. In the circular plate, the 12 war snake envoys on the second floor could absorb the constellation energy once every 2 hours. And the warriors on the third floor could also cultivate the star techniques in the murals. But he could only stare at it. It's time to leave. Lin Feng nodded. Since he could not get it, there was no need to force it. Instead of wasting time on it, he might as well go back to Tianwu continent to prepare. Maybe his brother already had good news. With a smile, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The jade scroll moved gently, releasing a strong spatial energy. Space door, Lin Feng shouted. But bang! In an instant, the spatial energy dissipated. What? Lin Feng was stunned and frowned. That was when he used the space door. A huge force seemed to have completely blocked the spatial energy. What's going on? It's him? Lin Feng looked at the giant indigo snake in the middle of the circular plate and frowned. This is his territory. Let's leave first. Lin Feng did not insist and walked out. There is no need for him to be angry with this saint-level existence. It was pointless. In fact, he could not afford to offend him. Failure. Failure again. Failure again. Lin Feng was shocked, his brows tightly knitted together. Be it in the circular plate, the palace, or even outside the palace, he could not use the jade scroll. The level of space seemed to be sealed, and the spatial energy seemed to disappear in a short period of time. Lin Feng felt that it was unbelievable, and he could not even use the jade escape. It felt his heart trembled. He was actually locked in the second level of the Thousand Snake Cave. When he entered before, he did not care. Even if he did not return to the first level of the teleportation channel after entering, he did not care. But now he was in big trouble. This is big. Lin Feng frowned. He did not feel a headache because he was trapped here. As the saying goes, when the car reaches the mountain, there will be a way. When the boat reaches the bridge, it will naturally be straight. Although this territory was very strange, he would find a way out sooner or later. The biggest problem was there was not enough time. There were only 10 days left before the half-a-year deadline. If he could not return, What if something happened to the sky martial continent? Wait, catastrophe. Lin Feng's eyes lit up and fell in a deep thought. I seem to have made a mistake. It's my wishful thinking to place the catastrophe on the sky martial continent, but the truth is, what Senior told me that day. It's just myself. Lin Feng's heart trembled. Looking around, he felt a sense of distraction. If the catastrophe happened to me, then could it be that it's not in the sky martial continent, but in here? Lin Feng clenched his fists and his eyes lit up. The boundless ocean. It was a vast and mighty scene. Thousands of members of the Blood Tiger clan were rushing over. Wherever they passed, all the demon clans who saw them trembled and lay on the ground, not daring to show any disrespect. That was the true peak existence of the demon clans. Thousands of Blood Tiger clan. The weakest was at the star domain level, and the leader was a saint-level existence. Their aura was as terrifying as the heavens. Blood Tiger clan, Kuei Zheng. How far are we? Kuei Zheng's gaze was firm, and the king word on his forehead was faintly shining. Based on our current speed, about. Quiken's eyes lit up as he nodded. We will reach in about 10 days, father. Good. Kuei Zheng replied in a deep voice, his aura terrifying to the extreme. The surging violent power caused the Blood Tiger clan experts behind him to not dare to breathe loudly. Kuei Zheng's eyes were cold to the bone. It was terrifying. Chapter 998. Lin Feng fell in a deep thought. Calamity. What exactly is considered a calamity? Senior's disciple informed me that I will face a calamity in half a year. At that time, because I knew that I was in the kingdom of Meru, I thought that the calamity would happen in the sky martial continent. But Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he sat cross-legged. Right now, he was not in a hurry. If the calamity really happened to him, then it would be much better for it to happen here than in the sky martial continent. At least, it would not implicate the innocent. But what if it happens in the sky martial continent? If the kingdom of Meru is destroyed because of this, would it also be considered my calamity? Is there a necessary factor in this? Lin Feng frowned, feeling even more hesitant. Originally, he was not an indecisive person, but at this moment, if he made a wrong move, it was very likely that he would lose the entire game. It's a pity. If Brother Beiming was here, he would definitely be able to guide me. Lin Feng felt helpless. In the end, it was because his understanding of divination was still too shallow. He did not understand what the so-called calamity meant. For a full day and night, Lin Feng did not move at all, thinking about this question. Even though the conclusion he came to was very clear, that the calamity was definitely related to him, but his family was also in the sky martial continent. If they were implicated because of him, it was obvious that this was also a calamity related to him. It was enough to be called a calamity, but this was only a guess, only one of the possibilities. It might not be true. The greater possibility was that it was directly facing him, a terrifying power that could destroy him. That was the true calamity that belonged to him. The two possibilities were between 30% and 60%, the remaining 10%. Heaven's might was unpredictable. Who knew what would happen at that time? Phew. After a long sigh, Lin Feng stood up, his eyes flashing. It was time for him to take action. Not to mention 30%, even if it was only 10%, he would not take the risk, because he could not afford to lose. If the death of his family was implicated, then he would not be able to rest in peace for the rest of his life. Even 10,000 deaths would not be enough to absolve him from the blame. To him, his family was everything. What was the purpose of cultivation? That day, the reason I stepped onto the path of martial arts was so that my family could live a good life. Today, I've been working hard. Isn't that the same? Lin Feng smiled calmly. To him, his family was the star crystal of his energy machine. Once lost, this energy machine would be completely undamaged, but it would no longer be of any use. No matter what, we had to find our way back first. It's not too late to think about other things. Lin Feng nodded, his eyes flashing. He absolutely could not sit still and wait for death. The first step was to explore. Instead of exploring the inside of the palace, they explored the outside of the ancient palace. This was especially true for the 12 planets, where the 12 battle snake envoys resided. They were of utmost importance. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. His intuition told him that the key to leaving this layer of Thousand Snake Cave lay in the 12 planets. No, it should be the 12 battle snake envoys. Because this starry sky seemed to be endless, but other than the 12 planets, there was only darkness. Deep darkness. There was not a bit of light, nor was there any substance. There was only the existence of nothingness. There was nothing. Pa! Lin Feng's hand lit up with a flame as he looked at the huge planet in front of him. Around him, there was a holy light shining. The planet emitted a strong aura of the Ophiuchus constellation, as if it was resisting and preventing others from entering. The important thing was the aura is completely covered. Other than the aura of the Ophiuchus constellation, I can't feel anything else. This place, Lin Feng shivered inwardly, feeling hesitant. If it was really as he had guessed, then every warrior here was an enemy and not a friend. If he barged in like this, he would definitely not come with good intentions. Under the premise that he could not communicate with them, he would most likely be treated as an enemy who was trying to snatch the Battle Snake Envoy's identity, and a huge battle would ensue. He was not afraid of a battle, but the problem was, if the enemy was his saint, then wouldn't he die in vain? It was not an exaggeration, but he had seen it with his own eyes. The single-horned strange man had already reached the saint level. The 12 battle snake envoys all had different strengths. Moreover, who knows what secrets there are in this planet? To fight for the battle snake envoys, it would be more convenient to do it in the palace. No wonder. Lin Feng suddenly nodded and remembered. No wonder the first time he saw the green-faced man and the strange man with the long ears fighting in the palace. No wonder there were so many living dead in this ancient palace. It was because they were fighting for the battle snake envoy's identity that they became stone statues. On the second layer of the disk, the teleportation tunnel behind the 12 stone statues should not lead to the 12 planets. There must be another use. Maybe it has something to do with leaving. Lin Feng's eyes burned as he quickly analyzed and came to a conclusion. If this teleportation tunnel was really between the planets and the palace, why would the green-faced man appear elsewhere in the palace and fight? Why would the single-horned strange man leave the palace and fly to the planets on foot? Everything had its own pattern. He entered the palace again, but it was different from the last time. This time, Lin Feng had a purpose. If I want to leave this place, it seems that first, I have to obtain the identity of the battle snake envoys. Enter the second layer of the disk. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. He was determined. Since he could not find any clues after exploring the entire galaxy, this was the only path he could take. He was no stranger to fighting and killing. The 12 battle snake envoys should be the strongest 12 among all the warriors here, Lin Feng muttered to himself. But the weakest few shouldn't appear so easily. Who didn't want to pick on the weak? He was like that, and so were the other warriors. But this kind of thing was two-sided. The 12 battle snake envoys naturally knew this. A saint-level existence like the single-horned strange man could come and go as he pleased. Who would dare to provoke him? Even a peak star sector-level existence like the single-horned strange man could come and go as he pleased. The single-horned strange man who challenged him the last time should be one of the stronger warriors on the third layer. Wait patiently. I should be able to find a battle snake envoys weaker than the single-horned strange man. But there are too many monks and too little gruel. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He had already discovered 2 warriors hiding along the way. Obviously, they had the same goal as him. Their auras were not too strong. Their strength was about the same as the single-horned strange man who killed the single-horned strange man. He had already discovered them the first time he entered, but the 2 of them watched the single-horned strange man leave. Their goal was obviously not him. I can't choose. There are only 9 days left. With my current strength, as long as it's not a saint, I can fight anyone. Lin Feng was full of confidence. Even if he was no match for them, he still had Hong Ling and the 100 poison-colored python to help him. Even if he faced the single-horned strange man for the first time, he had more than a 70% chance of winning. At most, he would be slightly injured. Compared to the calamity that was about to happen, the small injury was nothing. I hope I can make it in time. Lin Feng pondered for a moment. He did not enter the depths of the palace. Instead, he found a place at the outermost perimeter and sat cross-legged. He did not hide his aura at all. His expression and demeanor seemed to be telling others that he was determined to win. On the first day, he found nothing. On the second day, he still found nothing. On the third day, Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he was shocked. An extremely terrifying aura came toward him. It was extremely powerful and mighty. So strong. Another saint level. This is indeed not an ordinary place. Lin Feng was shocked. He took a few steps back to avoid suspicion. If the newcomer took it as a provocation and attacked him, it would be an unexpected disaster. The newcomer was a huge minotaur. It was 10 meters tall and carried a giant axe on its back. His entire body was furry and his upper body was naked. His strong muscles looked like they were about to explode. With one look, one could tell that he had terrifying strength. His arms and thighs were like iron pillars. It was a horrifying sight. Every step the minotaur took seemed to cause an earthquake in the palace. The terrifying pressure made it hard for people to breathe. This, Lin Feng gasped. So scary. It's even stronger than the single-horned strange man. Shivering in his heart, Lin Feng was shocked. He had seen this minotaur in the disc. The stone statue could not sense the strength of its aura. But now, it was completely obvious. Luckily, I did not rush into the 12 stars that day. Otherwise, who knows what kind of monster I would encounter. Lin Feng wiped his cold sweat. There were too many saint-level existences here. He could not afford to offend them. Soon, the minotaur left with his head held high. He did not care about the other small fries. In fact, he was already used to it. He seemed to enjoy the feeling of being feared. Otherwise, why would he be so arrogant and walk into the depths of the palace? With his strength, he could reach it in a few seconds. Lin Feng was not discouraged. He continued to wait. The peak star sector-level blue-faced man had appeared before. There would definitely be other star sector-level warriors. Not all of the 12 battle snake envoys were saint-level existences. The 4th day, the 5th day, the 7th day. Time passed day by day. Lin Feng was getting more and more anxious. And on the 8th day, he finally had an opportunity. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. His heart was beating fast. He felt an extremely fast figure flash past. It did not come from outside the palace. Instead, it sped out of the palace. It was as fast as the wind and as fast as lightning. If it was not because of a guilty conscience, why would it do this? As expected, it's all faded. Lin Feng clenched his right fist. His eyes were shining. He had been waiting for him for a long time. It was finally here. Chapter 999. It was an extremely familiar aura. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. He instantly took a step forward and flames appeared on his hands. The person who came was the him he saw when he first entered the palace, the green-faced man. You and I are destined to fight. Lin Feng's voice was calm and filled with battle intent. The scene from 9 days ago was still deeply etched in his mind. That day, the strange long-eared man died at the hands of the green-faced man. Just when he thought he was going to fight with the green-faced man, the green-faced man escaped. He didn't understand that day, but now it was clear. Firstly, the green-faced man had just gone through a battle and wasn't in his best condition. Secondly, he saw that he didn't take the initiative to attack and chose to retreat. He wasn't the only one of the 12 battle snake envoys. But this time, no one could avoid it. Roar! The green-faced man let out a low roar like a beast. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. Although he didn't understand what the green-faced man was saying, he could feel his anger. As fast as lightning, numerous indigo-colored dragons roared out. A total of 9 of them opened their bloody mouths and ferocious sharp claws. As the imprint on the green-faced man's wrist shone brightly, they crazily bit towards him. The terrifying aura seemed to want to swallow everything. It was extremely terrifying. This imprint is indeed something. If I'm not wrong, this should be the symbol of a battlesnake envoy. Lin Feng muttered in his mind and quickly reacted. Little Sword once told him that a battlesnake envoy could possess the power of a battlesnake. The green-faced man in front of him was at least an intermediate battlesnake envoy. This could be seen from the appearance of the imprint on his wrist and the illusory figure that appeared behind him. A giant indigo snake. It was exactly the same as the giant indigo snake in the palace. This was the secret of battlesnake possession. Not only could it temporarily borrow the power of the battlesnake, it could also use the special abilities of the battlesnake. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The green-faced man's eyes shone brightly. The terrifying power of the soul shot out along with the green-faced man's sharp gaze. Not only did it attack the body, it also attacked the soul. This is... Lin Feng was slightly startled. Soul attack. Lin Feng thought to himself, not panicking at all. The flames in his hands grew brighter and brighter. The vast star pupil and the vast star pupil almost spontaneously formed a dazzling light and blended with each other. Self-state, level 4, Lin Feng said calmly. The 4th level, top-notch eye. This was the truly terrifying power of the soul. Gee, there was an incomparably horrifying cry. The instant the two soul forces collided, a rapid fluctuation of combat strength erupted. The green-faced man didn't expect that his strongest attack, borrowing the strength of the war snake, would collide with an indestructible treasure sword. They were no match for him at all. His soul shook violently. The green-faced man's face was filled with pain. His body froze as if he had been paralyzed in an instant. What a pity, Lin Feng said softly, his eyes bright. He didn't expect that this evenly matched battle would turn out like this. There was a path to heaven, but he didn't take it. There was no door to hell, but he just had to barge in. He obviously didn't know that his strongest point wasn't his flames or his physical strength, but soul, twin life spirits, an extremely terrifying and powerful strength. Just the vast star pupil and the vast star pupil alone were already incredible. And the two existences at the same time fused into the self-state, that top-notch eye. His strength as a heavenly soul master wasn't comparable to a saint, but at least he was an invincible existence in the star sector level. No matter how strong the green-faced man was, right now, he didn't have any chance. Engulfing fire. Lin Feng's hands instantly condensed a monstrous flame. Not only did it completely engulf the terrifying giant dragons, but it also enveloped the entire palace. The terrifying power exploded in an instant, as if nothing in this world could stop this flame. It instantly engulfed the green-faced man. He was unstoppable. In one collision, in one exchange, the green-faced man was defeated. A short pause in this battle that was constantly changing was definitely courting death. Boom! The flame burned wildly, mixed with the green-faced man's roar. Lin Feng, however, didn't show any mercy. In an instant, a heavenly power flashed, enveloping the frail figure in the raging flames. It was as if the stars were gathering. Bit by bit, it condensed into a giant stone statue. The him in the stone statue had a look of shock and fear in his eyes. It was the expression he had at the moment of his death. Pa! The flame extinguished, and Lin Feng's eyes were burning. It was an unexpectedly easy battle. Winning was as easy as blowing off dust. Hua! Suddenly, on his right wrist, a brand flashed and condensed, bringing with it a piercing pain. Lin Feng frowned and looked over. He saw that the brand on his wrist was like a crystal, almost exactly the same as the one the green-faced man had. Is this a representation of my identity? Lin Feng smiled faintly. He felt that it was very similar to the battlesnake crystal he had obtained on the first level. However, this crystal was branded on his hand. But how could he use it? I'm not an Ophiuchus constellation, so it's basically impossible for me to cultivate. But this identity of a battlesnake user should be quite useful. Lin Feng smiled faintly, his eyes flashing. He could sense two auras that were very close to him, and they were not very well hidden. It's them. Lin Feng knew clearly. It was the two martial artists who were lying in ambush like him. Their goal was the same. Want to take advantage of the situation? They came quickly. Lin Feng naturally understood their intentions. If it were him, he would do the same. When the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. If he fought with the green-faced man, one would die, and the other would be injured. This was a good opportunity to take advantage. However, the two obviously didn't expect that. He was completely unharmed. The flame was fierce, and Lin Feng immediately turned around. Since they wanted to fight, he would fight. He could kill the green-faced man, let alone these two small fries. In an instant, whoosh, whoosh, the two martial artists fled faster than rabbits. One on the left and one on the right, their coordination was quite good. In the blink of an eye, they were submerged in this pitch-black palace. As Star Sector-level existences, how could they not feel Lin Feng's aura at this moment? Not only did it not weaken, but it also strengthened a lot. They felt that the battle with the green-faced man just now was just a warm-up. How shameless! Lin Feng smiled, and then the flame was extinguished. There was no need to chase after them. What good would it do him to kill them? As expected, strength is the standard in any place. As long as you have enough strength, you can truly control your own destiny. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Now, he had perfectly taken the first step. Wah! The light flashed. Lin Feng once again entered the depths of the palace, where the round plate was. This time, the feeling was completely different. The branding crystal on his wrist was shining, perfectly merging with the surroundings. The feeling was much clearer. It seems my status has increased a lot. Lin Feng smiled faintly. He looked forward and saw that the invisible barrier between the third and second layer had disappeared. It did not really disappear, but under the resonance of the branding crystal, it lost its effect on him. It was like a closed door that was now open. If he wanted to enter, he only needed to take a step. Instantly, a ray of light flashed. Oh! Lin Feng's eyes immediately lit up, and he looked at the center. At this moment, the huge indigo snake once again released star energy, which turned into 12 thin and long tributaries and fell directly into the 12 stone sculptures. This process would repeat every 2 hours. It was very regular. However, the 12 stone sculptures from the last time were different from the 12 stone sculptures this time. There was one more himself. Xiao! Lin Feng's figure flashed, and he landed in front of the stone sculpture that belonged to him. In the blink of an eye, he entered the second floor. Although it was only a short distance, it felt as if he had stepped through an entire spatial layer and entered a new area. So intimate, so familiar. Lin Feng suddenly smiled and looked at the stone sculpture as if he was looking at himself in the mirror. This stone sculpture had his own life imprint. Smack! Lin Feng reached out and touched the stone sculpture gently. In an instant, his eyes lit up completely. A rapid stream of energy flowed into his body rapidly, and it was surprisingly rich. Lin Feng was shocked. It was the constellation energy of the Ophiuchus constellation. But why could he absorb it? The feeling was very clear. This stream of energy entered his body without any hindrance and was instantly absorbed by him. In the originally dry space of his life soul, the primeval starry sky suddenly lit up, and the 7 main stars absorbed the energy crazily. What a powerful energy! What a rich feeling of star power! The corners of Lin Feng's mouth rose. However, he did not expect that there would be such benefits to becoming a Battlesnake envoy. No wonder everyone is fighting for a Battlesnake envoy. This benefit alone is extraordinary. There's no need to consider the absorption of the constellation energy at all. I just have to cultivate my star techniques and comprehend the essence of the Tao to increase my strength. It's extremely easy. This seemed to be only one of the benefits of being a Battlesnake envoy. Lin Feng smiled calmly and allowed the energy to be absorbed by the stream of energy. He then looked in front. It felt different. Looking down, he felt as if he was standing in the sky and looking at the human world. Human figures vaguely appeared on the stone wall. They all looked different and were extremely strange. What a magical palace. There's actually such a huge difference between the third and second level. Lin Feng immediately turned his head and looked at the center of the round plate. It was huge, extremely huge. He felt as if he was standing in front of the giant indigo snake and deeply felt the terrifying power that was like the heavens. That pair of indigo eyes seemed to be looking at him, seeing through every part of his body, not hiding anything. Huff! Lin Feng exhaled softly and was shocked. At this moment, the stream of energy suddenly stopped, and the absorption was completed. Lin Feng clenched his fists and felt the increase in his strength. Although it was not much, he could absorb it once every 2 hours. How shocking would the accumulation be? It's convenient. Lin Feng smiled calmly and looked around. Soon, his gaze landed on the oval-shaped door of light. It was right in front of him. It seemed to be a passage behind the stone sculpture. It was calling out to him. Chapter 1000. What would it be? Would there be a new situation after the passage? Lin Feng's eyes lit up as his chest heaved up and down. The reason why he became the Battlesnake Envoy was mostly because of the existence of this door. Leave this place. Now, this was the only way left. I hope everything goes well. Let me safely return to the kingdom of Maru. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. He had no more time left. There was only one day left. The calamity was about to descend. Ta! Stepping out, Lin Feng's expression was serious. In front of him, a bright light flashed as if space was distorted. His consciousness instantly entered a huge whirlpool that spun nonstop. His surroundings became blurry as if he was in darkness. But instantly, he came to a new area. This place is... Lin Feng was surprised. He seemed to have entered an interstellar space. What entered his sight was a huge statue that was tens of thousands of feet tall and shining with starlight. Ophiuchus constellation. The starlight around him made him feel as if he could touch it if he stretched out his hand. The most shocking thing was that this was a completely new world. All kinds of buildings were miraculously floating in the air. It felt extremely strange. But if he didn't care about the starry environment here, then looking out, this place was like a town. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. It's similar to the Battlesnake Town. If I'm not wrong, this should be the second level of the Thousand Snake Cave. Battlesnake Town? Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as he quickly judged. Because it was too easy to distinguish. In the blink of an eye, he already felt dozens of auras flowing around. Most of them were peak star domain level existences, but 20% of the auras were as powerful as the heavens. They were untouchable. Saint level. It was exactly the same as the horn monster and the tauren he saw in the palace. Ha! Lin Feng smiled bitterly and shook his head. He was deeply shocked. In the huge Douling world, he had only seen one saint. But now, in the blink of an eye, he saw a few. Some of the saints' auras were much stronger than Sakara. This place was like the world of the saints. The four perilous lands are indeed extraordinary. Lin Feng thought to himself. He had thought that the Hundred Falls ancient ruins was already incredible, but compared to the Thousand Snake Cave, it was nothing. In the Thousand Snake Cave, saints were too ordinary. Phew! Lin Feng let out a long breath and frowned. He thought that this space channel would give him a chance to return to the kingdom of Maru, but now. However, his hopes were dashed. The problem was still unsolved. There's still one more day. Maybe there's a way. Lin Feng nodded, not giving up. Until the very last moment, he would not easily admit defeat. Let's look around first, Lin Feng said softly. Battlesnake Town? No, this place could be called Battlesnake City. In terms of scale, it was more than 100 times larger than Battlesnake's Town. In the boundless starry sky, buildings could be seen everywhere. Obviously, this was the second level of the Thousand Snake Cave where the Battle Snake envoys gathered. Although he did not know, but it should be similar to Battlesnake Town. There are so many saints, but it doesn't seem to be much here. Lin Feng thought to himself, feeling deeply shocked. The more he saw, the more sparse and ordinary he felt. In this short period of time, he had already seen 10 saints. He was numb. The Star Domain martial artists did not even bow when they saw the saints, as though they were of the same generation. Looking around, it could be said that there were all kinds of martial artists. The Thousand Snake Cave did not reject anyone, and there was not only one channel. The 900 Battle Serpent Halls on the first level could open 900 doors, connecting 900 different regions. The martial artists here were all strange, which was normal. It's a pity I don't understand the language of Ophiuchus constellation. If not, I could ask. If only Little Sword was here. Lin Feng thought to himself, feeling helpless. At this moment, it was as though there was a needle in his mind. The time limit of the last day was getting closer and closer. He had to think of a way to leave. But what could he do? Pursing his lips, Lin Feng frowned, lowering his head. Suddenly, Lin Feng's body tensed up as a surge of energy enveloped him. His heart trembled violently. It was a power that was like heaven's might. Saint-level martial artist. Lin Feng felt that something was wrong. Shit, is it because I'm not from the Ophiuchus constellation that I'm going to be killed here? Lin Feng clenched his teeth. Raising his head, he was shocked. It's him. The person in front of him was a familiar face, one that he had met once before. It was a human who was taller than him by a head, with a slender body and a naked upper body. His 8-pack abs were very clear. His hands were behind his back, a pair of sparkling eyes like a goldfish, looking at him with a smile that did not look like a smile. Single-horned weirdo. When he had just entered the palace, he had met a strong saint. Seeing him looking over, the single-horned weirdo's mouth twitched, as though he was smiling, but he opened his mouth and said something. I don't understand. Lin Feng felt bitter. At this moment, he regretted not learning the language of the Ophiuchus constellation. Even if he only knew a little, at least it could solve his urgent situation. A saint-level martial artist was talking to him, and seemed to be talking about something important, but he could not understand. His heart sank. Opening his mouth, he said a few words. Lin Feng pointed to his ears, shook his head, and spread out his hands helplessly. Although there was a language barrier, at least he could use gestures to communicate. The single-horned weirdo's face froze and nodded his head. His handsome face pondered for a moment. Then he smiled and patted his shoulder. What is he doing? Lin Feng was surprised. Although he did not understand what the single-horned weirdo meant, it was obvious that he did not have any bad intentions. A smile was the best way to communicate. Were you bringing me? Lin Feng thought, his eyes flashing. He did not resist, and followed the single-horned weirdo forward. The second level of the Thousand Snake Cave was slightly different from the first level. In the first level, each battle snake hall could only have one battle snake envoy. But here, the battle snake hall was surrounded by 12 stars, and it felt like a personal guard. The relationship between each battle snake envoy was not necessarily hostile. Since he was here, he might as well take it easy. Anyway, I don't know what to do next. Lin Feng laughed bitterly. Since he did not know where to go, he would just go with the flow and let the single-horned weirdo lead the way. Perhaps it would be of some help to him. Very quickly, Lin Feng came to a quiet area. What a familiar chi. Lin Feng was surprised. Following the chi, he looked forward, and his eyes lit up. It was a huge stone sculpture, and compared to the Ophiuchus constellation sculpture he had seen before, it was very different. But the he in front of him was more familiar. Indigo giant snake sculpture. The extremely familiar chi gave him a sense of closeness. With a thought, Lin Feng looked at his wrist. At this time, the branding crystal was shining brightly. At this time, he felt a weight on his shoulder. Lin Feng immediately looked up and saw the single-horned weirdo pointing ahead with a smile. Lin Feng said softly, "Oh," and looked over. It was a huge crystal palace, and it was beautiful. Lin Feng looked at the single-horned weirdo and saw him pointing at the crystal palace and then at himself. Lin Feng nodded in realization. The single-horned weirdo seemed to be saying that this was his residence. What about mine? Just as he thought about it, Lin Feng saw the single-horned weirdo pointing at another crystal palace not far away, and it was almost the same. I see. Lin Feng immediately reacted and smiled. He looked around again, and the crystal palaces that looked like paradise surrounded the indigo giant snake, and he could feel it very clearly. It was exactly the same as the 12 stars. Thank you. Lin Feng smiled at the single-horned weirdo and nodded to express his gratitude. The single-horned weirdo smiled and grabbed Lin Feng's wrist, pointed at the branding crystal, and then at the door. I understand. Lin Feng nodded in understanding. The single-horned weirdo meant that if he wanted to enter his residence, he had to rely on the branding crystal. As if he was quite satisfied with his attitude, the single-horned weirdo touched his head, raised it proudly, and patted his chest. Lin Feng could not help but smile. He understood the meaning very well. The single-horned weirdo was saying that if anyone bullied him, he could look for him. He dared to invite him, and treated him as his little brother. It was fate that brought them together. Okay, Lin Feng smiled. Although the single-horned weirdo did not understand, he was still very grateful. Although he was a saint-level powerhouse, the single-horned weirdo did not put on airs at all. He felt like he was his elder brother. Huh. The single-horned weirdo laughed heartily. As if he had thought of something, he took out a small crystal book and handed it over. Lin Feng was slightly startled and took it. Although he did not know what this small crystal book was, it was still a kind gesture from the single-horned weirdo. Although there was a language barrier, gestures and expressions were the best bridge for a short communication. After watching the single-horned weirdo enter his residence, Lin Feng immediately rushed toward his own crystal palace. Here, the pressure of the starry sky was even greater. How did this door open? Lin Feng stepped in front of the crystal palace and smiled bitterly. He secretly cursed himself for being stupid. He did not see with his own eyes how the single-horned weirdo entered the palace. Suddenly, his vision blurred. He did not need to do anything at all. As soon as he approached the crystal palace, the branding crystal on his wrist lit up. With a soft sound, a crystal door slowly opened. It was quite simple. So convenient. Lin Feng smiled in surprise. Since that was the case, he did not waste any time and stepped in. This must have been the residence of the green-faced man, so the single-horned weirdo recognized it. After entering, there was a clear and transparent color. The magnificent feeling made one's heart flutter. Compared to the simple stone house on the first floor, the difference was not small. And at the center of the crystal palace, that is... Lin Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. Chapter 1001. They were densely packed with star fruits. They did not grow one by one. Instead, they grew on the trees in patches. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled, and he could not help but chuckle. He looked around and saw that there were more than 100 star fruit trees. Although there were not many trees, they were full of star fruits. Every fruit was full of color and brimmed with rich star energy. These are the same kind of star fruit, Lin Feng quickly discovered. Not only did the star fruit trees look similar, but the star fruits were also exactly the same. Although it was a little strange that there was an orchard in the Crystal Palace, it was obviously this was not a small gain. If I'm not wrong, these star fruit trees should belong to the man with the green face. But I don't know where he got it. Lin Feng smiled faintly. He did not care about the origin of these star fruit trees. No matter who they belonged to in the past, they now belonged to him. The stone sculpture in the disc can absorb the battle snake's star energy on its own. Therefore, these star fruits full of star energy are not of much use to the man with the green face. Moreover, he is already at the peak of the star sector level. Lin Feng nodded and smiled. These star fruits were useless to the man with the green face, but to him, they were a huge fortune. For other warriors, the most difficult aspect to increase their strength was star cultivation and domain. However, he could easily grasp the two aspects of star domain level. Unfortunately, he was lacking in the simplest aspect of star energy absorption. His strength improved too quickly. Star energy absorption needed time. Naturally, he could not keep up. But now, with these tens of thousands of star fruits and the star energy absorbed by the stone sculpture, it was different. If I can survive this calamity, when I return to Shirluo County in half a year, my strength will undergo an earth-shattering change. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. Lin Feng's guess was not entirely correct, but it was not far from the mark. These star fruit trees did belong to the man with the green face, but he did not get them. They were planted by him. The martial artists of the Thousand Snake Cave came from all sorts of strange worlds. The martial artists of each world more or less had their own specialties. As for the Coiling Tree Clan, which the green-faced man belonged to, they were best at cultivating all kinds of starfruit trees. The 100-plus emerald spring trees before his eyes were his masterpiece. However, to Lin Feng, although these starfruit trees were precious, they couldn't solve his urgent need. Phew! Lin Feng sighed and shook his head helplessly. He had explored the Crystal Palace several times and dug 3 feet into the ground, but he couldn't find anything that resembled a teleportation tunnel. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't anxious as he watched the last day go by. Catastrophe! What was a catastrophe? This was no ordinary calamity. If it really affected the entire Sky Martial continent and the Kingdom of Meru, then even 10,000 deaths could not absolve the blame. Think of something. There's still time. I can't give up. Lin Feng frowned deeply as he paced back and forth in the Crystal Palace. However, he seemed to have thought of every method. Wait a minute. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. A light flashed in his hands as he took out the small crystal book that the horned monster gave him. It was exquisite and translucent. The small crystal book felt very clear and natural. It gave him a feeling of lightness in his heart, as though it had some sort of connection with him. This is... Lin Feng gently flipped open the small crystal book. In a split second, a bright light flashed in front of his eyes. It was as though he had entered a strange world. In his mind, there were all sorts of symbols floating around. All sorts of words were intertwined. He seemed to recognize the words and understood the meaning of the symbols. Imbued in his mind, Lin Feng's eyes flashed with a blurred color. He was completely immersed in it. This is a language. Ophiuchus Constellation's language. Lin Feng immediately understood. The feeling was extremely clear. At every moment, he could recognize many of the symbols. Every syllable of the symbols was grasped by him. It was extremely mystical. Time passed slowly. Lin Feng immersed himself in learning the language, grasping every minute and second. At this time, a group of terrifying existences was slowly approaching the Sky Martial continent. The sky was red, as though it was dyed blood red. A black mass of terrifying existences. Their astonishing chi pervaded the entire sea. As they flapped their wings, the airflow was extremely rapid. One of the 4 emperors of the Spirit Demon Clan, the Blood Tiger Clan. At this time, under the lead of the Saint Rancor Kuei Zheng, they were majestically rushing towards the Sky Martial continent. Everywhere they went, the Spirit Demon Clan would kowtow to show their sincerity and respect. In a split second, pong, the leader, Kuei Zheng, stopped. His burning tiger eyes were filled with a dense blood-red light. He was extremely shocked. The Saint Rancor's body was actually trembling slightly. His huge wings stopped flapping. The king word on Kuei Zheng's forehead was shining brightly. Father. Quikin saw his father suddenly stop and revealed a look of suspicion. The Blood Tiger clan behind him. Only Kuei Zheng was their leader. Seeing that Kuei Zheng had stopped, they naturally did not dare to overtake him. Within the Spirit Demon Clan, the ranks were divided very clearly. Cluck, cluck. The sound of teeth grinding could be heard. Kuei Zheng's face was slightly ashen. His tiger eyes flashed with a cold light. He gritted his teeth and said, Evil demon, Kuei, to father, you also saw it? Quikin opened his eyes wide and said in shock, I don't know. Kuei Zheng shook his head and frowned. He said in a deep voice, maybe it is an illusion, or maybe Kuei too is really still alive. But Kuei Zheng shook his head. His expression was serious. The possibility of this is not high. According to the records, our ancestor Kuei II was indeed killed that day. But, Quiken said, there is no need to say more. Kuei Zheng raised his hand and interrupted. His tiger eyes were sharp. Whether it is real or fake, whether it is real or not, or whether it is real or not, we will soon know. I want to see what kind of tricks they are playing. Let's go. With a low roar, Kuei Zheng looked forward angrily. The word king on his forehead shone brightly. This was the boldness of the skilled. Thousand Snake Acupoint. At this moment, Lin Feng was diligently learning. In the first level of Battlesnake Town, he could also learn the language of the Ophiuchus constellation. However, compared to the second level, it paled in comparison. The secret manual given by the one-horned strange man was even better. How could something given by a saint-level expert be ordinary? 2 hours passed. Another 2 hours passed. In Lin Feng's mind, the words of the Ophiuchus constellation had been deeply branded. The obscure language, the symbols that were like scribbles, could now be completely understood. It did not seem difficult at all. Pa! Lin Feng opened his eyes and took a deep breath. The crystal booklet had unknowingly flipped to the last page. The flickering light outside the booklet had disappeared. Lin Feng gently closed the crystal booklet and smiled. Just the right time. He was in a treasure land like the Thousand Snake Cave, but he did not understand the language of the Ophiuchus constellation. It was undoubtedly difficult for him to move forward. But now, he could completely adapt to it. So his name is Glenoid Scale. I owe him a big favor. Lin Feng smiled. He now completely understood what the one-horned strange man had said to him, including his name. His name was Glenoid Scale. Although it sounded very awkward, even though his appearance was a little fierce, he was rather kind. I have to thank him properly when I have the chance. Now, let's see if I have missed anything. Lin Feng's eyes brightened. Previously, he was completely blindly fumbling around in the Crystal Palace. But now that he was proficient in the language of the Ophiuchus constellation, it was a completely different situation. The things that he did not care about before, perhaps he would have some new inspiration that could help him. Hurry up. In the Thousand Snake Cave, Lin Feng was burning with anxiety. On the other side, one of the 4 great sovereigns of the Demon Clan, the Blood Tiger Clan, was rushing over. The sky was densely packed. Under the leadership of the Saint Expert, Kuei Zheng, the members of the Blood Tiger Clan were orderly and their morale was high. At this moment, they had already arrived outside the Sky Martial Continent. Outside the gigantic defense formation, many pairs of tiger eyes were terrifying. It's here, father. Quiken's eyes were still filled with shock. Although his father was accompanying him this time, and there were so many experts of the Blood Tiger Clan, Quiken was still not confident. The scene from a month ago was still fresh in his mind. He deeply remembered the ferocious face and terrifying aura of his ancestor. It was as if he had a huge power that wanted to devour him. Quiken looked at his father uneasily, only to see that his father's expression was extremely solemn, and his face was constantly changing. The aura of a human. There is actually the aura of a human here. Kuei Zheng's eyes were filled with disbelief as he widened his eyes. What is going on? The dignified demon Kuei II, who has killed hundreds of millions of people and is covered in blood. Why is he living with humans? Also, what is this broken formation? Is he hiding his aura, or is he deceiving himself? Anger, doubt, and a hint of fear. Although Kuei Zheng did not experience the second war of the liches and demons, he was familiar with many things, especially the deeds of the Blood Tiger Clan's ancestor. Kuei II, a Saint King expert. He was famous in the Blood Tiger Clan and even the entire Demon Clan. That year, he did not have the title of demon. But during the war of the liches and demons, he suddenly went crazy and killed without distinguishing between friend and foe. That year, countless demon clansmen died in his hands, and many saint experts were torn to pieces by him. Although they were killed later, but he was the shame of the Blood Tiger Clan and even the entire Demon Clan. What was that illusion just now? Was it luring me in? Impossible. Kuei II is clearly dead. This must be fake. Kuei Zheng gritted his teeth. and his tiger claws flashed ferociously. I know. This must be the conspiracy of these lowly humans, wanting to take advantage of the situation to avoid the demon clan. How insidious. But how can the Blood Tiger clan's ancestor be tarnished by these lowly ants? Trying to play this game with me. Kuei-jung? I've never been afraid. Roar! An angry roar shook the heavens and the earth. Kuei-jung stood in the sky with his head held high, and his bright eyes were terrifying to the extreme. He shouted loudly, "Brothers, listen up. Kill all these ants for me. Don't leave a single one alive. Kill without mercy." Thunder rumbled, and the tiger's roar startled everyone. Chapter 1002, City in the Sky. What a terrifying aura. Lin Yun's eyes flashed. The Lord of the Holy Empire was right. It's true. A calamity is coming. Tianqing sighed. Her tone was filled with helplessness. Fortunately, we made preparations in advance. It's better to be prepared, Lan Qing said. Since the establishment of the Kingdom of Maru, in order to avoid another beast riot, Lin Yun had long since made arrangements and made various defensive measures. For example, the underground layer, the refuge deep in the lake, and even the reconstruction of the ancient ruins. Prevention is better than cure. Even if they couldn't protect all the people of the Kingdom of Maru, at least they would leave some bloodline. This was very important. Although if a terrifying calamity really happened, it would be useless no matter how deep they hid. Some things were enough, and the rest was up to the will of the heavens. As the saying goes, do your best and leave the rest to the will of the heavens. At least, there was still a lot of hope. Let's go, Your Majesty. If we don't leave now, I'm afraid we won't be able to leave. Tianqing said slowly. The three of them nodded and smiled at each other, but it was a smile of helplessness and powerlessness. Brother, come back quickly, Lin Yun said softly in his heart. His right hand clenched into a fist and trembled slightly. At this time, although Tianqing and Lan Qing didn't say anything, they were thinking of the same thing, the same person. In the past, he had saved the Tianwu continent from disaster several times, whether it was the beast riot, the killing of the little celestial dog, or the chaos of the strange snake. The kingdom of Maru still existed today only because of him, the holy king, Lin Feng. In the Thousand Snake Cave, Lin Feng was burning with anxiety. His hands were as fast as lightning, constantly flipping through the books on the bookshelf. His eyes were constantly changing, and he read 10 lines at a time. Find a way. There must be a way. There must be a way to leave this place. There must be. Lin Feng gritted his teeth and kept flipping through the books. Beside him, stacks of books were piled up like mountains. Lin Feng flipped through them and memorized them at an extremely fast speed. However, he still found nothing. After reading another book, Lin Feng's eyes were slightly listless. There was still nothing he could do. Was it really impossible? What to do? What should he do now? As the seconds ticked by, the anxiety in his heart was about to drive him crazy. If he could not return, the Sky Martial continent would suffer a calamity. The citizens of the Kingdom of Maru would be massacred. His family would not even have their bones left. In the future, how should he live? How could he face his own heart and face all of this? Calm down. I must remain calm. There must be a way, there must be. It's just that I haven't discovered it yet. Confidence was very important. Once he lost his confidence, there was nothing he could do. Lin Feng took a deep breath, and his chest gradually calmed down. His brows were tightly knitted together, and his lips were tightly pursed. In a split second, Lin Feng was abruptly stunned and forcefully punched his left palm. I'm so stupid. Since I am already proficient in the language of the Ophiuchus constellation, why do I need to figure it out myself? Didn't Glenoid Scale just tell me to find him if I have any problems? With his strength and knowledge, he might know a way. With that thought, Lin Feng immediately sprinted out. Like a gust of wind, Lin Feng opened the door and ran straight to Glenoid Scale's Crystal Palace. I hope he's here. Don't ever go and train. Lin Feng clenched his teeth and anxiously stepped in front of Glenoid Scale's Crystal Palace's door and pressed the doorbell. Poo-poo, poo-poo. His heart was beating extremely fast. Lin Feng stared at the door. In a split second, his heart moved, and the sound of the door opening could be heard. Lin Feng's eyes were burning with light. He stared at the familiar figure that gradually entered his eyes. Senior Pan. Lin Feng cupped his hands and said happily, "Oh, it's you, little brat." Glenoid Scale laughed, obviously not surprised that Lin Feng came to find him. "You're quite a fast learner. Do you have something you need my help with?" "To be honest, Junior has a request." Lin Feng nodded seriously. "Speak." Glenoid Scale laughed twice. Lin Feng looked at Glenoid Scale with sparkling eyes and said seriously, "Senior, if I want to leave this place and return to my original world, is there a way?" Staring at Glenoid Scale, Lin Feng did not even dare to breathe, afraid that he would get a negative answer. This was already his last hope. Glenoid Scale pondered for a while, nodded, and suddenly laughed. "Of course there is a way." A voice like the sound of nature sounded in his ears. Suddenly, Lin Feng's eyes were incomparably bright, and he clenched his fists tightly. This is great. And at this time, Sky Marshall Continent was once again facing a crisis. The calamity was once again descending. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion. With just one claw, Kuei Zheng completely destroyed the formation that Quiken had spent a lot of effort to break last time. Like the roar of thunder, the earth shook violently, and the entire Sky Marshall Continent fell into endless panic. The sky fell, and the earth cracked. The earth cracked from the middle, and dark clouds covered the sky. In the entire kingdom of Meru, everyone's eyes were filled with fear. In the underground layer, people were crowded, feeling the tremors of the earth. Even the underground layer was trembling violently, and the sound of heavy breathing was accompanied by a rapid, suffocating feeling, trembling. The refuge at the bottom of the lake, with a protective shield to isolate the water source, was the place that coexisted with the underground layer and could accommodate the most people. The kingdom of Meru had gone through many tribulations, and the proportion of the population had decreased greatly. Otherwise, it would not be able to accommodate so many people. Including the various ancient ruins, they were all filled with people, and everyone was kneeling on the ground, praying devoutly. They hoped that the calamity would end soon. Everything in the kingdom of Meru seemed to be changing greatly, including in a desolate area. At the border, there was a huge cemetery that stretched as far as the eye could see. The tombstones were crooked, and there was not even a blade of grass growing on the sandy land. Around the huge cemetery, there was a strange atmosphere. All kinds of illusions flashed, and there was an ear-piercing sound that was like the cries of vengeful spirits. In the center of the huge cemetery, there was a dark and empty existence. Terrifying, shocking. It made people's hearts palpitate and their souls fly away. This was the third of the 4 great danger grounds, 10,000 Bones Ruin. There was not a single human figure, not even a ghost figure. In the Sky Marshall Continent, there was a legend. As long as one stepped into the boundary of the 10,000 Bones Ruin, they would be surrounded by ghosts and directly dragged into the 10,000 Bones Ruin and thrown into the 18 levels of hell, never to be reincarnated. Compared to the 100 Falls and 1,000 Snake Cave, this was the truly terrifying existence. That day, Lin Feng did not dare to enter, because a fear that came from the bottom of his heart spread throughout his body. This was the true hell. Jia Jia, Jia Jia Jia. It's really here, my foolish descendant. The sinister voice went straight to the heart, and it was extremely hoarse and unpleasant to hear. It was like the sound of coins scraping against glass, and every word gave people goosebumps, especially that laughter. If ordinary people heard it, they would not be able to sleep peacefully for a few days and nights. I'm finally free. Damn, this damn place is really terrible. You old bastards, you can slowly enjoy yourselves here. I'll take my leave first, ha! No one saw that in the center of the cemetery, the terrifying 10,000 bones ruin was flashing with a demonic light. A wisp of terrifying soul aura was flying out at a terrifying speed. It had the body of a tiger, the horns of a cow, and a spiral-shaped whip. Its scarlet skin looked as if it was carved with blood, and it was covered in layers of scales. It was thin, but as sharp as a blade. Its body was exactly the same as the Blood Tiger clan's. Pung, pung, pung. The sky fell and the earth cracked. The experts of the Blood Tiger clan were high and mighty. Although there were not many of them, every one of them was a peak star sector level existence. These adult blood tigers, no matter how weak their aptitude was, were all peak star sector level existences. Just like divine beasts, as long as they reached adulthood, they would be at the saint level. However, divine beasts were unable to give birth naturally, but the Blood Tiger clan was different. Although they could not compare to the reproductive ability of the other demon clans, the Blood Tiger clan could still reproduce and continue their bloodline. With a terrifying saint-level production rate, the reputation of being one of the 4 emperors of the demon clan was not undeserved. Father, these humans seem to know that we are coming. Quicken smiled. That's right. Kuei Zheng's eyes lit up, and a sinister smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. These despicable and shameless ants are indeed borrowing the power of our ancestors to set up an empty city. Father is wise. Quicken smiled. This time, he didn't see the ferocious face that caused his heart to palpitate with fear and astonishment from the last time. The king character on his forehead was faintly discernible, and Quicken's lips curled up. A group of ants. How dare you insult the ancestors of my Blood Tiger clan? Heinous crimes. You think you could just hide? Kuei Zheng's eyes revealed a hint of loftiness and disdain as he roared angrily. Following his thunderous roar, the Blood Tiger clan behind him raised their heads and roared. The shocking tiger roars filled the entire Tianwu continent, and every person hiding in the shelters could hear them clearly. What's that sound? Oh my God, why is there tiger roaring? What's going on? It was chaos. Everyone thought that it was a natural disaster, so they temporarily hid. However, it seemed that it was not the case. Everyone's face was filled with horror. Their eyes lost their color as they recalled the bitter days of the past. It could be said that the Tianwu continent was experiencing one wave after another, just like the waves of the sea, without any rest. Bang! Bang! Their hearts were beating violently. Their breathing was hurried, and everyone could smell the stench of blood. They could feel the terrifying aura. In front of them, there seemed to be many terrifying figures. They could see the hell of blood. Kill. Kill crazily. The humans of the Kingdom of Meru were once again facing a terrifying disaster. The crazy Blood Tiger clan rushed down. As one of the 4 emperors of the demonic clan, they had terrifying senses. How could a mere underground shelter escape their senses? Although it might take some time, but as long as they were willing, the humans would die without a burial ground. Kuei Zheng was like a high and mighty marshal, standing with his head held high as he looked down on everyone. His domineering aura was astonishing. At this moment, Kuei Koen was swooping down with unbearable excitement. This kind of game of slaughter was something he loved to play the most. What he loved to see the most was those terrified and shocked faces, and it filled him with an extreme sense of satisfaction. However, at this moment, Quicken opened his eyes wide, his face filled with shock. The evil demon, Kuei, too, had appeared in front of him. Chapter 1003. It was a face that he couldn't be more familiar with. Quicken had seen it in the records before. A month ago, he had clearly seen it. Ancestor, the demon Kuei too. An ancestor that was full of legends. But this time it was different. It was deeply imprinted in his mind. Quicken felt a rapid and terrifying power spread in his heart. His body trembled, and he instantly felt an incomparably strong power tearing at the depths of his soul, as if it wanted to devour him completely. No, no. Quieken was terrified and shocked, but he opened his mouth wide and couldn't make any sound. Struggle? Is there any use in resisting? Jia, Jia. Be devoured by me obediently, kid. It's your honor to become a part of my Koei 2 body. Ha ha ha. The arrogant voice kept echoing in Queeken's mind. His body trembled. Queeken didn't have any strength to resist. With Koei 2's strength, even a naked soul wasn't something he could resist. So what if his aptitude was superior? His potential hadn't been developed. It was just hidden in the depths of his body and couldn't be of any use. Almost in the blink of an eye, pong, Queeken's body trembled violently and stopped at that moment. That pair of dim tiger eyes flashed with a cold light, revealing a trace of awe-inspiring terror. A star sector level body is really weak. If it wasn't for safety, it would be much more convenient to devour that big body. Fortunately, this body's aptitude is not bad. It's only a step away from the saint level. With my soul, it won't be long before I can recover all my strength. Queeken's mouth revealed a sinister smile with a cold light. It was a look of hatred. The king word on his forehead was no longer faintly discernible and uncontrollable. Instead, it was shining brightly and emitting a powerful aura like that of an emperor. It was even stronger than Kuei Zheng's. Despicable humans, detestable sorcerer tribe, the grudge between us is absolutely irreconcilable. I want you to pay the heaviest price. I Kuei 2 am back. Haha, Thousand Snake Acupoint. I can't thank you enough. Senior Pan, this junior has an urgent matter to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. When I return in the future, if you need my help, I will not hesitate to go through water and tread on fire. Lin Feng cupped his fists and thanked him sincerely. If it wasn't for Glenoid Scale's help, even if he knew the way, he wouldn't have been able to do anything. The way back could only be opened by someone with the strength of a saint. Lin Feng could feel a powerful force rushing into his body, triggering the branding crystal on his wrist. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he connected the two spaces with his mind. His vast star pupils' senses were extremely clear. Little fellow, your aptitude is not bad. Glenoid Scale's eyes flickered as he praised. He cackled, and the horn on his forehead shone brightly. With a shout, his power erupted. What a powerful burst of power! Is this the strength of a saint? Lin Feng was shocked, feeling even more incredulous. Temporary loan. Glenoid Scale used a secret technique to temporarily lend him a portion of the saint's power to open the teleportation gate. Along with the dense spatial energy fluctuation, a crack in space slowly lit up like an eye. Feeling the powerful energy in his body, Lin Feng was shocked. This was not his own power. Just like the power Shi Jixin had lent to Bei Ming Yang, this power would cause great damage. It was a kind of mystery. But right now, he couldn't care less. He had to rush back immediately. Senior Pan, we'll meet again, Lin Feng said respectfully. When they first met, he didn't expect that a saint would be so approachable. Such character was worthy of his respect. Be careful, little fellow. Glenoid Scale laughed. Sky Martial Continent. It was a mess, and the sound of whistling was like thunder. The smell of blood could be seen everywhere, and the dense blood mist was everywhere. Killing filled the sky, and the experts of the Blood Tiger clan were crazily slaughtering the people hiding in the sanctuary. Each of them had a ferocious face, like evil spirits. Here, anyone of the Blood Tiger clan was enough to wipe out the entire kingdom of Maru. A peak star sector-level expert was almost invincible in the Sky Martial Continent. But it was just almost, because there was still a person in the kingdom of Maru. At this moment, the people who were in a state of panic and disaster were hiding in the sanctuary, praying for the return of a hero. Panicked faces, trembling bodies, all of them were chanting this name in their hearts, and that face appeared in their minds. This was their faith, the pride of the kingdom of Maru, their guardian god, the holy king, Lin Feng. Sizzle, sizzle. Space was torn apart. Feeling the familiar space ripple, it was Yu Miao's spatial door that remembered this location. Lin Feng slowly came out from the spatial crack. Looking at the familiar building in front of him, Lin Feng's face revealed a long-lost smile. But in an instant, bang, his heart was shocked. The city in the sky was empty. Very unusual. It should be said that this was something that was impossible to happen. Unless, oh no. Lin Feng's face changed, and his heartbeat accelerated. His chest rose and fell rapidly, and he felt a terrifying threat, an existence that was enough to kill him. It was a premonition, a warning. He had felt this warning more than once. Every time, it was very effective. Calamity. It really is a calamity. It really came. It really is the sky martial continent. Lin Feng clenched his teeth, and his face was pale. If he encountered such a warning normally, he would naturally avoid it. But now, he did not have the slightest thought. As the Holy King, as the son, as the big brother, the responsibility on his shoulders was as heavy as Mount Tai. Avoid. As a man, how could he avoid it? Whoosh! Like an arrow, Lin Feng flew away. Without the slightest hesitation, and without the slightest panic, there was only unswerving determination. He had no way out. Even if he died, he would fight to the end. The sky fell and the earth cracked. The terrifying power spread throughout the entire sky martial continent. Flying down from the city in the sky, in almost a blink of an eye, Lin Feng had already seen the scenes that were like purgatory in the human world. Some demonic beasts with terrifying strength were slaughtering innocent humans. Looking at those hideous faces, Lin Feng felt as though his heart was being pierced by a knife. He was too late. Damn bastards. Lin Feng gnashed his teeth. At this moment, all his emotions turned into anger. All of his anger had transformed into an astonishing and terrifying power. Seeing the kingdom of Meru, which he had built with his own hands, being destroyed, and watching these innocent people being slaughtered, Lin Feng's heart seemed to have broken into countless pieces. His eyes were bloodshot, and he was hysterical. Die! You all deserve to die. Lin Feng yelled, and flames burned in his hands. The level 5-star technique, engulfing fire, was accompanied by a strong purple light. Lin Feng frantically attacked the blood tiger closest to him. Blood Tiger Clan, the emperor of the demon race, is actually so despicable and shameless. Die! With an angry roar, Lin Feng exerted his power to the extreme. He did not hide it all. The results of half a year of cultivation were completely released at this moment. That day, he even killed the peak star sector-level green-faced man. Now, how could he not kill these Blood Tiger Clan? The spear intent was completely released. At this moment, Lin Feng's spear technique had soared to a whole new level. Because of his anger, because of his responsibility, because he was forced into a corner. Humans were humans because they had joy, anger, sorrow, and joy, as well as 7 emotions and 6 desires. Everyone had a reverse scale in their hearts that was not to be violated. Lin Feng's anger was the most terrifying power. All his thoughts turned into killing, into a terrifying power that could devour everything. Lin Feng's hands erupted with extraordinary power. The purple crystal spear shot out quickly. At this moment, the blood tiger that was slaughtering innocent people reacted and roared, immediately counterattacking. However, it was too late. As if he had vented all his power, Lin Feng's eyes were bloodshot. He was crazy to the extreme. Go to hell. With a roar, the purple crystal spear shone brightly, and the engulfing fire completely erupted. There were no techniques or tricks. There was only a swift and fierce assassination. There was no hesitation in killing, completely disregarding one's own safety. Bang! This attack was heavenly. The Blood Tiger Clan, that was at the peak of the star sector level, was completely turned into dust under this attack. The terrifying power tore everything apart. Lin Feng's right arm was completely numb, and his eyes were cold. After all, the Blood Tiger Clan was not an ordinary demon clan. Moreover, the physique of the demon clan was much stronger than that of humans. No matter how abnormal Lin Feng was, the opponent's strength was not weak. However, Lin Feng did not care. At this moment, he only wanted a vent. The blood of the phoenix filled his body. Behind Lin Feng, there seemed to be a flaming red phoenix flashing. A completely angry phoenix. Even if I die, I will drag you all down with me. Blood Tiger Clan. Lin Feng gritted his teeth, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. The injuries on his body slowly recovered. Lin Feng did not stop for a moment and instantly sped towards another blood tiger. No matter how strong the opponent was, no matter how bad the situation was, what he should do, he would not retreat even half a step. The kingdom of Maru would not allow anyone to invade as they wished. Never. Kuei Zheng's eyes deepened as he looked down. It's the chi of a human. There's a human who has the strength of a star sector level. Kuei Zheng sneered and did not care. There was a large group of Blood Tiger clan members, and all of them were at the peak of the star sector level. A mere star sector level human. What was there to fear? But in an instant, Kuei Zheng's face changed slightly, and a violent chi spread. What? Killing 10 in a row. This human is really daring. Kuei Zheng gritted his teeth and gently flapped his wings, which were as thin as a cicada's wings, as if they were tearing the space apart. You're courting death, Kuei Zheng said coldly and flew down like a shooting star. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Chapter 1004. What a powerful human. I've only been asleep for 10,000 years, and this place has changed so much. Kuei Kun. No, it should be the demon Kuei Tu now. His tiger-like eyes flashed as his heart trembled slightly. At this moment, Kuei Tu was trying to fish in troubled waters. Unlike the other blood tigers who were crazily slaughtering humans, Kuei Tu was not interested in such boring matters. Kuei Tu strolled around casually, his tiger-like eyes changing constantly. He was thinking about what to do next. It's a pity that although this human is strong, he's still a far cry from Kuei Zheng, Kuei Tu thought. After devouring Quiken's soul, he had received Quiken's memories perfectly. Not only did he recognize Kuei Zheng, but he also remembered everything about Quiken since he was young, including his identity, origin, bloodline, and so on. In other words, he knew everything that Quiken knew. He also knew things that Quiken did not know. The demon Kuei Tu had been completely reborn. The most troublesome one is this Kuei Zheng. If this human can eliminate him, things will be perfect. Kuei Tu thought about it, but could not think of a way. After all, his current strength was only at the peak of the star sector level. Compared to the saint level Kuei Zheng, they were not on the same level. No matter how strong his soul was, it was useless. Moreover, his soul was not even 1/10 of his peak. I'll just fight and calculate. Even if this Kuei Zheng suspects something, what can he do to me? At most, I'll hide and cultivate until I reach the Saint King level. So what if I waste some time? Kuei Tu's eyes flashed as he thought about it. The situation of the battle changed rapidly. Lin Feng's participation was like a stone falling into a lake. Although it couldn't cause the entire lake to ripple, it still caused a splash. At the very least, it proved that the Blood Tiger clan was not invincible. However, the number of blood tigers that entered the kingdom of Maru this time was too large, numbering in the thousands. Moreover, unlike the Celestial Dog clan last time, the weakest member of the Blood Tiger clan, they were all peak cosmic realm states. Perhaps they were both peak cosmic realm states, but there was a difference in power. However, their foundation would not change too much. After all, the reputation of the 4 sovereigns of the demon race was not undeserved. The aptitude of the Blood Tiger clan was top-notch. Huff, huff. Lin Feng panted heavily, his face pale. He had killed 10 experts of the Blood Tiger clan in a frenzy, but he had also paid a heavy price. The injuries on his body were not light, but because of the existence of the Phoenix's blood, this kind of external injury was not a big problem. The key was devouring fire. This is troublesome. The consumption of the devouring fire is too great. Almost half of them are gone in the blink of an eye. Lin Feng gritted his teeth and felt a deep sense of helplessness. The sky was filled with experts of the Blood Tiger clan. The thick smell of blood permeated the entire continent, forming a thick blood fog. The massacre continued. Countless humans were brutally slaughtered by the demon race every second. His heart seemed to be twisted into pieces. It was a heart-wrenching scene. The kingdom of Meru was now like purgatory on earth. Damn it! Lin Feng clenched his fists tightly, his veins popping out. He felt a deep sense of helplessness. He wished he could kill all these damned beasts, but his strength was one level lower. Moreover, the current situation was completely hopeless. He did not even summon Hong Ling and the 100 poison-colored python. Although the two were powerful, how many could they kill against the thousands of blood tigers? One or two. A drop in the bucket. There was no need to implicate them and send them to their deaths. Was there really no other way? Calamity. What a great calamity. Lin Feng gritted his teeth and took a deep breath. His eyes flashed with an unyielding light. No matter what, he would not give up. Never. Even if he was left with his last breath, he would fight until the end. Even if he died, he would drag one more down with him. Blood Tiger Clan. Lin Feng roared hysterically. Deep despair had unleashed all the potential in his body. His eyes were filled with anger, mixed with his bright eyes. He could faintly feel the truth of heaven and earth. His vast star pupils were especially bright. The Blood Tiger clan was proficient in the Tao of space. In the battle with the experts of the Blood Tiger clan, in this environment, Lin Feng was unknowingly comprehending. But was it useful now? The outcome was already decided, including Lin Feng himself. The moment he returned to the kingdom of Meru, the rapid beating of his chest was a deep warning. This place was a dead end. Bang! Lin Feng's galloping body seemed to have hit an invisible wall. A terrifying force instantly attacked him. Lin Feng's eyes widened. He felt a deep sense of control. He was suffocating. It was a terrifying pressure that was directed at him. It was as tall as the sky, making people look up to it. Saint level. Lin Feng gritted his teeth. He was very familiar with this feeling. Feeling the terrifying aura, Lin Feng raised his head. He immediately saw a black shadow that covered the sky. It was an incomparably huge blood tiger. Its wings were as sharp as knives as its sword. The tiger's eyes were burning as it stared at Lin Feng as if it was looking at a lowly ant. It was very strong. It was terrifying. Lin Feng could not even feel the slightest resistance. This was a true saint-level existence. Ha! Lin Feng was not afraid. Instead, he laughed. I did not expect to attract a saint level to deal with me. I am very honored. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. He was already mentally prepared. The feeling of suffocation in his heart. The moment he entered the kingdom of Meru, he had already predicted that the enemy this time would be a terrifying saint-level existence. However, he had no way to retreat. He had to fight. Even if I die, I will not let my heart down. Calamity. It is indeed a terrifying calamity that cannot be reversed. This kind of calamity, it is not something a human can resist. Lin Feng said softly, facing death calmly. The extreme pressure of the domain completely locked his body, making him unable to move. However, at this moment, Lin Feng's feeling became incomparably clear. Disregarding life and death, his whole person had a unique change. The strange feeling in the Thousand-Snake Cave's starry sky was familiar. It was as if a key had opened a door. Everything around him was familiar. His eyes lit up. Pa! Pa! Invisible energy was released. Lin Feng's body suddenly became inexplicably light. His eyes lit up. Lin Feng couldn't help but smile. He broke through just like that. His control of the domain seemed to have advanced once again. It was as if he had left this space and was completely independent. He could clearly sense every inch of space energy, every inch of time energy, and all kinds of energy flowing in the air. He had already transcended this area, including his control. This is the control of the saint level. Lin Feng smiled. The crack between life and death indeed contained a great mystery. Facing despair and death, His potential was completely unleashed at this moment. However, it was useless at this moment. Although his control of the domain had reached the saint level, his strength was worlds apart from the saint-level expert of the Blood Tiger clan. They were not on the same level. The only difference was that he was tortured by a rope just now, but now the rope was released. I can still resist stubbornly. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. His eyes suddenly lit up. That's good. I have not tested the strength of a saint-level expert. How strong is he? A strong flame rose in his hand. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with fighting spirit. He completely relaxed his state of mind. Even if he died, he would die a heroic death in battle. This was the fate of a martial artist. He broke through. This lowly ant is not simple. Kuei Zheng's eyes shone brightly, with a hint of Pang Rant's killing intent. His thin wings flapped, as if they were cutting through the layers of space. Dense Tao of space accompanied the airflow. Like waves of blades, they attacked as fast as shooting stars. Kuei Zheng's mouth curved into a cold smile, full of disdain. An ant will always be an ant. So what if you have outstanding talent? You're just a slightly stronger ant. In the end, you can't escape the fate of death. Chi, chi, chi. Strong air blades shot out along with the flapping of the wings, directly toward Lin Feng. In an instant, blood splashed. The strength of a saint-level expert was too terrifying. Even if it was just a casual attack, Lin Feng would not be able to block it. But you can actually avoid the vital parts? For an ant, not bad. Kuei Zheng's eyes shone with a bloody light again. His killing intent surged. Lowly ant, let me send you on your last journey. Not interested in wasting any more time, Kuei Zheng looked up to the sky and roared, with a hint of recklessness and arrogance. The terrifying power of heaven exploded in an instant, as if distorting the entire space. The terrifying power enveloped everything. The true power of a saint-level expert at this moment completely exploded. Go to hell, lowly human. Kuei Zheng rushed down, like a sharp arrow piercing through. The terrifying power was enough to crush everything. A saint-level expert. With blood stains at the corner of his mouth, Lin Feng's eyes shone with a faint smile. He barely dodged the air blades just now, and could only avoid the vital parts. This attack that could destroy everything, he could not block it at all. Like a landslide or a volcano erupting, the terrifying power distorted the entire space, including his body and consciousness. This is the power of a saint-level expert, so strong. Lin Feng murmured, feeling powerless to resist. His devouring fire, star power, and everything else seemed to be extremely small in front of this power. There was no defense that could block this terrifying attack. It was a hopeless situation. Am I going to die? Lin Feng murmured indifferently, but there was a hint of stubbornness in him. His eyes shone, his fists clenched, and his fighting spirit boiled. Even if he was a moth flying into a flame, or a mantis trying to stop a chariot, he did not care. Amethyst spear, devouring fire, go! Lin Feng gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with stubbornness. He did not care about the difference in strength at all, and he did not care about the difference in level. At this moment, he only wanted to fight fiercely. So what if he was going to lose? This was the fate of a martial artist. Chapter 1005. The aura surged, and there was an intense clang sound. In an instant, an unusually huge power appeared on the purple crystal spear. The terrifying power was familiar. Lin Feng was also a little shocked. He immediately reacted. It was the power that Senior Glenoid Scale had given to him. That touch of saint-level power. He had forgotten that other than opening the door, he could still use this power at other times. There was no Xian Fu among the Battle Snake envoys that belonged to the demon Blue Battle Snake. Good. Lin Feng's eyes shone. Since he was going to die anyway, he would die happily. Facing an unprecedentedly terrifying enemy, his spear technique completely erupted. He directly entered the 4th level of the spear insertion technique and was further enhanced by the purple crystal spear. However, even the 5th level of the spear insertion technique was not very useful in front of Kuei-jung. He was a true saint-level existence, and Lin Feng was just borrowing the power of a saint level. Kuei-jung did not dodge. He did not even think of dodging Lin Feng's attack. If he had to dodge the attack of an ant, that would be too embarrassing. You overestimate yourself. After saying those words coldly, Kuei-jung's thin wings pierced through space like a sharp arrow and instantly collided with Lin Feng's purple crystal spear. The terrifying power tore through everything. Kuei-jung did not use his full power, but at this moment, he was shocked. What? His claws vibrated as he felt a shocking power erupt. How can he have saint-level power? Impossible. Although Kuei-jung was in disbelief, his bestial nature and hostility were aroused. The terrifying aura strengthened again. The overwhelming power exploded with unparalleled power, distorting the entire space. Die! Kuei-jung's eyes were filled with ferocity. If he was disdainful of Lin Feng before, he now felt threatened. He had never seen such a human before. He had such power even before reaching the peak of the star sector level. If he became a saint-level existence in the future, he would definitely become a huge threat. This person must be eliminated. It was completely unstoppable. It was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Even if he borrowed a portion of glenoid scale strength, it was only borrowing. In terms of body, strength, perception, and ability level, regardless of which aspect, Lin Feng was far inferior to Kuei-jung. Moreover, even in the saint level, glenoid scale was one of the best. Is this the true strength of a saint? So strong, really so strong. Lin Feng murmured in his heart, feeling deeply shocked. Only when he truly faced the power of a saint did he realize how big the difference in strength was. That was an existence akin to the might of the heavens. It was the true peak power of the Douling world and was enough to destroy everything. Saint level. This is the saint level. Lin Feng was sucked into the distorted space. He looked a little dazed. In that moment of life and death, he seemed to have understood many things. The originally high and mighty saint-level experts were gradually unveiling their mysterious masks. It felt like another step closer. But what was the use? He couldn't escape this calamity. The distorted and terrifying power of space would soon tear him into pieces. His hands were completely numb, and the amethyst spear was long gone. The devouring fire that he was so proud of was swallowed by the power of space and disappeared without a trace. The huge difference in strength couldn't be closed. In front of this monstrous power, he didn't even have the slightest hope of survival. Am I going to die? It's all over. Lin Feng's heart tightened into a ball. He felt his consciousness blurring. As soon as he entered the distorted space, the terrifying power completely crushed his body. In his mind, scenes of the past appeared one after another. He recalled his difficult journey step by step. Father, mother, brother, sister. Ziyao, Qianqian, Yuma. The figures flipped like pages of a book. Lin Feng felt a deep sense of guilt. He owed them too much. I'm sorry. After saying these 3 words, Lin Feng closed his eyes. His consciousness was on the verge of collapse. That terrifying power was like a ferocious beast opening its bloody mouth and swallowing him. At this moment, bang, an unbelievable power appeared in an instant. The golden light was dazzling and filled with a sacred and inviolable feeling. It was a pentagonal star shining with rich golden light. It gathered into a solid light shield and completely covered his body. What's going on? Lin Feng was extremely shocked. The destructive power that had distorted the entire space seemed to have vanished in an instant. In an instant, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Could it be it? Lin Feng was greatly shocked. The pentagonal star floating in front of him was the golden, innate treasure that he had obtained in the 100 Falls. That seemingly ordinary innate treasure that he couldn't even merge with a drop of his blood had now inexplicably triggered a strong protective layer that blocked the fatal attack and saved his life. That was the attack of a saint-level expert. it could actually block it. Moreover, the layer of dazzling golden light around his body seemed to have some remaining power and hadn't shattered. However, defense was just defense. How many times could block? Not only was Lin Feng shocked, but Kuei Jing also widened his eyes in disbelief. His attack that could even severely injure a saint-level expert was blocked by this lowly ant in front of him. This ant was actually still alive. Roar! Kuei Jing roared furiously. He was truly furious. Who was Kuei Jing? He was a famous existence even in the Blood Tiger clan. Now, he couldn't even kill a mere star sector-level ant. If this matter were to spread, he would lose all face. Sizzle, sizzle. A terrifying aura spread out and enveloped the entire area. The surging anger made Kuei Jing's power explode. The word king on his forehead was clearly visible and shining. He no longer hid his strength. The terrifying aura spread across the entire Tianwu continent. All the humans hiding in the shelters could feel the terrifying demon-like aura. It was a huge bloody light that condensed into a deep bloody mist. His eyes were filled with intense, killing intent. Not only the humans, but all the experts of the Blood Tiger clan stopped in an instant. Their faces were solemn. Their king was enraged. Interesting. This is really interesting. On the other hand, Kuei too smiled as if he was deep in thought. His eyes were full of changes. A mere star sector-level human can actually block this fatal attack. He is hiding many secrets. This is getting more and more interesting. Kuei too thought to himself. He couldn't wait for the situation to become more chaotic. He hoped that Kuei Jing would be killed like this. It couldn't be better. However, was it possible? It was impossible. With Lin Feng's strength, he couldn't even block another attack, let alone kill Kuei Jing. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The golden light was dazzling and filled with a holy aura. Lin Feng's eyes were bright. Although he was injured, it was only a light injury. The fatal attack was completely neutralized and absorbed by the golden treasure. However, he was only delaying his death. At this moment, that terrifying power had already completely enveloped him. The shocking aura was accompanied by the distortion of space. This time, he had no way to escape. With the remaining golden light, could he block one or two attacks? He would definitely die. What a pity. Lin Feng smiled bitterly and clenched his fist. The saint power given to him by Senior Glenoid Scale was still there, but it didn't belong to him. He couldn't unleash the true power of this power. Otherwise, he might not be unable to fight it. In the distance, the terrifying power was attacking him. He could predict that he would die again in an instant. Lin Feng took a deep breath. Suddenly, his heart trembled. Wait, he couldn't fight against this terrifying saint, but it didn't mean that others couldn't. Frowning, Lin Feng instantly reacted. His eyes flashed. Even if I have to offend you, I have to do it once. I hope you won't take offense. In an instant, Lin Feng gathered his palms together and a shocking saint-level power flashed. In the blink of an eye, a crack in space appeared in the distorted space. It was like a slit of an eye opening. The flickering space energy was like the light of hope. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. This was the way back to the Thousand Snake Cave. He was no match for the terrifying saint-level expert in front of him, but in Battle Snake City, there were countless saint-level existences. I hope I can make it in time. Lin Feng frowned. It was urgent. There was only this one chance. Kuei Jing's eyes were wide open. He was completely enraged. A terrifying power came towards him. Space teleportation. Despicable human. You actually want to escape. Anger attacked his heart. To Kuei Jing, if Lin Feng escaped in a one-on-one fight, he wouldn't be able to raise his head again. This matter would become a deep humiliation. His face was at stake. It would affect his future in the Blood Tiger clan. He couldn't allow this kind of failure. Don't think of escaping, human. Kuei Jing's power exploded. His blood-red eyes flashed with the word king. A terrifying attack blasted towards Lin Feng. However, at such a short distance, in an instant, the result was completely different. Lin Feng's body hid in the crack in space. Kuei Jing's attack brushed past him and shattered Lin Feng's afterimage. It flew towards a huge lake in the distance. Pong! An earth-shattering explosion sounded. The endless lake was instantly vaporized by the terrifying power. Not even a drop of water was left. Kuei Jing's eyes were wide open. His body trembled slightly. Suddenly, he roared crazily. In front of him, the crack in space gradually closed. Kuei Jing clenched his teeth. Suddenly, whoosh! Kuei Jing entered the crack. He didn't care about anything else. To him, none of this could compare to killing that lowly human. Escape? Don't even think of escaping. Pa! The crack in space disappeared. Along with Lin Feng and Kuei Jing's auras, they disappeared. All the experts of the Blood Tiger clan were dumbfounded. What was going on? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.